Greetings, fellow fans. You're tuned into Fanfic Universe, presenting to you today, what if Naruto awakened as a full-moon werewolf at age 6 and the third Hokage hid it from the village? Show some love by liking and subscribing. Enjoy the story ahead. Chapter 1, The first moon the night it happened, the village smelled like rain and old fear. Naruto had noticed that about Konoha early on, the way the air changed around the anniversary. People walked faster. Shopkeepers locked up before sunset. The few adults who made eye contact with him during the rest of the year stopped doing even that. It was like the whole village collectively decided to pull its coat tighter and look at the ground, and nobody ever explained why, and nobody had to, because explanations required acknowledgement, and acknowledgement required looking at the 6-year-old boy eating alone on the steps of his apartment building with a bowl of cold ramen because the restaurant down the street had closed early again. Naruto ate his ramen. The broth had gone lukewarm and the noodles were soft in the way he didn't like, but he ate it anyway because it was food and because he'd learned before he learned most things that being picky was a luxury that required someone to care whether you were picky. The moon was coming up. He could feel it before he saw it, a warmth behind his sternum, like swallowing a coal that somehow didn't burn. He'd felt it before, faint and distant, the way you feel weather changing in your joints. But tonight it was different. Tonight it was loud. He looked up. The moon cleared the rooftop across the street and it was full and white and enormous, the kind of full that made it look close enough to touch, and the coal in his chest detonated. Naruto dropped the bowl. It shattered on the step below him and he didn't notice because his hands were shaking and his vision had gone strange. The street which had been dim and orange-lit was suddenly sharp and silver, every shadow with a hard edge, every dust mote in the air a tiny visible thing, and he could hear the heartbeat of a cat 3 buildings over and smell the ramen shop owner's tobacco from half a block away, and something was climbing up his spine with hot fingers and he opened his mouth to say something, to call for someone, anyone, and what came out wasn't words. He ran. He didn't decide to run. His legs decided. They took him off the steps and into the street and he was fast, faster than he'd ever been, his feet barely touching the ground, and the wind was cold and perfect against his face and the moon was everywhere, pouring down between the buildings like liquid, and the thing climbing his spine reached the back of his skull and, he didn't remember the next part clearly, ever. Later, in the years that followed, he'd try to reconstruct it and always hit the same wall, a white space, a sensation of enormous size, the smell of pine forests that didn't exist anywhere near Konoha, and a sound like the whole world exhaling. What he remembered was after. He was on his knees in a clearing at the edge of the Hokage forest, the one that butted up against the training grounds, and his clothes were in pieces around him and his hands, both hands, pressed flat against the dirt, were trembling. The moon was directly overhead. The clearing was silent except for his breathing, which was ragged and wet, and the distant sound of a tree somewhere to his left slowly finishing the process of falling over. He'd knocked it over. He didn't know how he knew that, but he did. Don't move. The voice came from the tree line, low and controlled, and Naruto's head snapped toward it with a speed that surprised him. His eyes found the speaker in the dark without any effort at all. ANBU, white mask, crouched on a branch 10 feet up, one hand already forming a seal. There were 4 of them. He could see all 4 without turning his head and he understood dimly that this was not normal, that before tonight he would not have been able to do that. I said don't move, kid. I'm not moving, Naruto said. His voice came out rougher than usual. His throat ached. I'm kneeling. Hands where I can see them. They're on the ground. You can see them. A second ANBU dropped from a higher branch and landed silently to his left, and something happened in Naruto's chest, not fear, exactly, but something adjacent to it, something that evaluated the distance and the angle and the readiness of the person and filed it away with a cold efficiency that also did not feel entirely like himself. He noticed this about himself and found it strange and then found that he didn't have time to find it strange because the third Hokage stepped out of the shadow at the far edge of the clearing and everything changed. Hiruzen Sarutobi was in full Hokage robes, which meant he'd come officially, which meant someone had called him, which meant, Naruto's brain worked through it fast, he'd been observed already. Before the ANBU spoke. Someone had been watching him tonight. The old man walked across the clearing with the unhurried pace of someone who was either not afraid or had decided that being afraid was not useful. He stopped 6 feet from Naruto and looked at him with an expression Naruto didn't have the vocabulary to name yet. It was the look of someone doing math in their head and not liking the answer. "Naruto," he said quietly. "Old man." Naruto stayed on his knees. He felt, obscurely, like standing up would be a bad move. I don't know what happened. I know." Hiruzen crouched down to eye level, which was something Naruto hadn't expected and which did something complicated to the tightness in his chest. "Are you hurt?" Naruto looked at his hands. His palms were dirty, pressed into the forest floor, and there were scratches across the backs of his knuckles, but they were already fading as he watched. He blinked at them. "No," he said slowly. "I don't think so." Hiruzen looked at the scratches too. Something moved through his expression. Grief was the closest word, but also something harder, something that had already made a decision and was living with it. "Lord Hokage," one of the ANBU said from the tree line. "Protocol requires, I know what protocol requires, Hawk." Hiruzen didn't raise his voice. "Stand down." "Sir, that was not a suggestion." Silence. The ANBU called Hawk went very still and then, after a moment, relaxed out of his ready stance in the incremental way of someone who disagreed but valued their career. Hiruzen kept his eyes on Naruto throughout. "Can you stand up?" he asked. Naruto pushed himself to his feet. He was taller than he remembered being this morning, or maybe that was the moonlight, or maybe it was something else entirely, and his body felt, mapped, somehow. Like he understood the dimensions of it more precisely than before. "Yeah," he said. Hiruzen stood too, and he took his Hokage robe off, the heavy ceremonial one with the kanji on the back, and he folded it and he held it out to Naruto without a word, because Naruto's clothes were in shreds on the ground. Naruto stared at the robe. Then at the old man's face. "Take it," Hiruzen said. "You're cold." He wasn't, actually. He was the opposite of cold. But he took the robe because the gesture meant something he didn't have words for, and wrapping it around his shoulders felt like being claimed, just slightly, just enough. "What am I?" Naruto asked. Hiruzen was quiet for a long moment, and in that quiet Naruto heard the 4 ANBU breathing in the tree line, and the cat 3 buildings over, and somewhere beneath the forest floor the movement of water through ancient stone, and a sound that he would spend years learning to identify, a low, resonant pulse, like a heartbeat made of moonlight, coming from somewhere inside his own chest that was not where his heart was. "Something old," Hiruzen said finally. "Something I need to understand better before I can explain it to you properly. Can you trust me a little longer, Naruto?" Naruto thought about cold ramen and locked shop doors and 6 years of existing in the specific way that people who are not wanted learn to exist, sideways, low, taking up minimal space. "You came," he said instead of answering the question directly. "When they called you. You came yourself." Hiruzen looked at him steadily. "I will always come myself." That, Naruto decided, was going to have to be enough for tonight. He pulled the Hokage's robe tighter around his shoulders and looked up at the moon, which was still full and white and close, and felt the coal in his chest settle to a steady warm glow, and somewhere deeper, further down than he could consciously reach, something vast and furred and ancient settled on its haunches and looked back at the sky with him. 3 hours later, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in his office with a cup of tea that had gone cold and 6 classified files spread across his desk, and the weight of what he was about to do pressed down on him like a physical thing. Hawk stood across from him, mask in hand. He was young, younger than he'd seemed in the forest, with the kind of face that wanted very badly to be unreadable and hadn't quite finished learning how. "You understand," Hiruzen said, without preamble, "that what you saw tonight is classified at the highest level." "I understand, sir." "What did you see tonight, Hawk?" Hawk's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He understood the question. I saw the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails have a stress reaction in the Hokage forest. He was disoriented and distressed. You retrieved him and returned him to his apartment. Hiruzen waited. There was evidence of chakra discharge, Hawk continued. The tree fell due to wind pressure, possibly residual from the boy's emotional state affecting his chakra passively. That's all. That's all I saw, sir. Hiruzen looked at him for a long time. Hawk met the look without flinching, which was either loyalty or training, and at this stage Hiruzen wasn't sure the distinction mattered. The other three, he asked. Will say the same. They didn't have my sightline. Hiruzen nodded once. He picked up the cold tea, found it cold, and set it down again. There's a mission file from 15 years ago, he said. Classification Sigma. It doesn't exist in any record accessible below my desk. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Hawk blinked. I think so, sir. In that file there is a description of a bloodline that appeared once, briefly, in a shinobi from the land of forests north of the Iron Country. A pact bloodline, old enough that most of the supporting documentation references it in myth rather than medical terms. He paused. The shinobi in that file was managed very badly. I will not repeat that mistake. Hawk was quiet. Naruto Uzumaki is the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, Hiruzen said. That is the sum of his classified status. That is the only answer you give, the only answer you know, if anyone, and I mean anyone, asks you about tonight. Including Root. Especially Root. The name Danzo hung in the air between them, unspoken and heavy as stone. Yes, sir, Hawk said. Hiruzen picked up the cold tea again, and this time drank it anyway. Send in the medical team, he said. Standard examination. Then go home, Hawk. You've had a long night. When the ANBU left, Hiruzen sat alone in the silence of his office and pulled the oldest file from the bottom of the stack, not the Sigma classified one, but a personal file, handwritten, the paper soft with age and handling. There was a name on the front that he'd written himself, 23 years ago, when he'd first started piecing together what the Uzumaki clan's furthest branches had carried in their blood, dormant and waiting and immeasurably old. He opened it to a page near the end, where a single paragraph had been circled in red ink. The pact does not respond to the vessel's chakra system. It is not a Kekkei Genkai in any conventional sense. It is a covenant, made, it is said, before the age of shinobi, between a single human bloodline and the primordial wolf spirits of what we now call the Moon Forest, and what makes it extraordinary, and dangerous, is this, it does not grant power to those who seek it. It finds those who have already survived the seeking. He closed the file. Outside the window, the full moon was descending toward the western mountains, slow and certain, and somewhere in a small apartment on the east side of the village, a 6-year-old boy in a Hokage's robe was lying awake on his mattress on the floor, listening to the world breathe, and learning for the first time that he could hear everything. The next morning arrived gray and drizzling, and Naruto appeared at the academy gates 20 minutes early. He was wearing the robe tied around his waist like a sash. His only decent clothes were the ones he'd ruined last night, and the only clothes left in his apartment were a pair of orange pants 2 sizes too big and a shirt with a stain on the collar that he'd scrubbed twice and given up on. He'd figured out fairly quickly that the robe tied around his middle covered the stain, and orange and white was a decent enough combination, and he'd stared at himself in the cracked mirror above his sink for a long time this morning with his blue eyes wide and his whisker marks sharp and something moving behind the blue that he was still learning to look at directly. He didn't look like a boy who'd spent the previous night on his knees in a forest clearing with his clothes in shreds around him. He looked, and he was still figuring this part out, like a boy who had survived something and emerged on the other side of it not broken, but sharper. The academy gate guard was an older chunin named Iwata who had, in Naruto's experience, a face that expressed a limited range of emotions and usually settled on mild disapproval when Naruto was involved. He looked at Naruto this morning and his eyes caught on the robe, and the disapproval flickered towards something more complicated. "You're early," Iwata said. "I know," Naruto said. "You're never early. I know. And is that, I borrowed it, Naruto said, which was true enough, and walked through the gate before the man could decide whether it warranted follow-up. The academy in the early morning, before the other students arrived, had a specific quality of silence that Naruto had never experienced before because he'd never been here this early before. He walked the halls slowly, and this morning they were full of information, the chalk smell from the classroom on the right, the particular creak of the third floorboard from the left in the main corridor, the distant sound of the groundskeeper's cartwheels on gravel somewhere behind the building. He processed all of it without deciding to, his mind sifting automatically, and this too was new. The scale of what had changed overnight would have been terrifying if he'd let himself think about it head-on. He found it easier to approach sideways, the way he'd learned to approach everything, taking in one new detail at a time. He went to the classroom and sat in his usual seat at the back, not the back left where the overlooked student sat, but dead center back, where he could see the entire room, a position he'd chosen 2 years ago for reasons he hadn't fully articulated but that now made a clean, simple sense. He put his chin in his hand and looked out the window at the rain. The wolf, and he was already thinking of it that way, the wolf, a separate but resident thing, was quiet this morning. A low hum. Aware, but not pressing. It felt, if he was being honest, like company. And Naruto, who had spent 6 years in the specific silence of having no company, found that this was not the worst thing. The classroom filled up around him. Kids arrived in pairs and clusters, the noise rising from zero to the usual roar, and Naruto sat in his center-back seat and watched them with his new eyes, which noticed, without malice, that 3 of them had slept badly, that one girl near the window was coming down with a cold, that Kiba Inuzuka had arrived smelling of dog and dirt and what might have been someone else's lunch, and that Hinata Hyuga had sat down in her usual spot near the front and immediately, as she always did, looked briefly and desperately toward the back of the room before looking away again. Naruto had always noticed Hinata's glances. He'd never been entirely sure what to do with them. This morning, on an impulse he couldn't entirely explain, he lifted one hand in a small wave. Hinata's face went the color of her hair tie. She spun forward so fast she nearly knocked her textbook off the desk. Naruto put his chin back in his hand and almost smiled. The instructor walked in, Mizuki, today, filling in for Irika who'd been down with a head cold, and started talking about chakra theory, and Naruto opened his notebook and wrote what he was supposed to write and said what he was supposed to say, and through all of it the wolf hummed quietly at the base of his awareness, and he was thinking about what Hiruzen had called him. Something old. Not a demon. Not a monster. Not whatever the people in the street saw when they looked at his face and decided to look away. Something older than any of that. Something that had been in his blood longer than the 9 tails had been in his gut, waiting for the right moon. He could work with that. Hiruzen kept his word, partly. He came to see Naruto 3 days later, not in the Hokage tower but at Naruto's apartment, with 2 bowls of takeout ramen and a file that he kept folded in his inner pocket and didn't show Naruto yet. And he explained what he could in the language available to a man trying to tell a 6-year-old the truth about something ancient without triggering either a breakdown or the 3 ANBU he had stationed on the rooftop across the street out of an abundance of caution. What he told Naruto, that there was something in his blood from a long time ago. That it was tied to the moon. That it would happen again, on the full moon, every month, for the rest of his life, and that managing it was something they would work on together. He said the word bloodline and not the word werewolf, because the clinical term felt important, because names were power, and he wasn't ready to hand all of it to a 6-year-old at once. What he didn't tell Naruto, the full contents of the Sigma file. What Danzo had done 15 years ago with the last person who carried this. What the primordial wolf spirits were, or had been, before the shinobi age had buried everything older than itself under 6 layers of codified chakra theory and village loyalty oaths. Naruto ate his ramen and listened with the unnerving, focused attention of a child who has learned that information is a resource and that the adults in your life are usually rationing it. So every full moon, Naruto said. Yes. I turn into, what? A wolf? Hiruzen considered the question. More than a wolf. Less than a wolf. You're still you. Was I still me last night? You were you with the volume turned up. Naruto thought about this. The tree, he said. Yes. I knocked it over. You did. Naruto looked at his hands, normal this morning, small and scarred from the kind of low-grade physical life that came with no one watching out for you. I wasn't scared, he said, and his voice had a quality of careful honesty, like he was reporting findings rather than expressing feelings. When it was happening. I thought I would be. But I wasn't. I know, Hiruzen said. Is that bad? The old man was quiet for a moment. Outside, a cat jumped from Naruto's windowsill to the fire escape with a clang, and both of them heard it, and Naruto's eyes went briefly to the window with the automatic alertness that was already becoming habitual. No, Hiruzen said. I don't think that's bad. The old man at the vegetable stand, Naruto said, not changing subjects but extending them, saw me one time, just me walking by, and he went inside and locked his door. Just for me. I wasn't doing anything. He paused. If he knew, what would he do? Hiruzen had no good answer for this. He gave the only honest one. I don't know, he said. That's why I'm asking you to be patient. I'm patient, Naruto said, which was objectively untrue and they both knew it, and the look on his face acknowledged this, and there was something in that moment, the shared acknowledgement of the lie's necessity, that was more honest than the lie itself. Hiruzen went home that night and sat with the weight of what he was building, a secret wrapped around a child wrapped around two impossible inheritances, and all of it balanced on the premise that he could control the information long enough for the boy to grow strong enough that the information's release would no longer be a death sentence. It was, he knew, the most dangerous kind of hope. But he'd built Konoha on dangerous hope once before. The full moons came every month like a reliable appointment, and by the third one, Naruto had stopped being surprised by them. By the sixth, he'd started looking forward to them. This was the part Hiruzen had not fully anticipated, not the power, which he'd expected, but the relief of it. The way Naruto, in the days following a full moon, moved differently. Lighter. Like something had been wrung out and reset, like a body restored to its proper pressure. The boy had been carrying 6 years of accumulated solitude and low-grade endurance, and the wolf, whatever else it was, metabolized some of that. Burned it off. Left something cleaner underneath. Hiruzen had arranged a training field, Field 7, which was technically decommissioned due to the structural damage to its southern tree line, damage that was now quietly attributed in maintenance records to a one-time chakra discharge event from the Jinchuriki, and on full moon nights, Naruto went there under observation and the wolf came out, and Hiruzen sat on a folding camp stool with a thermos of coffee and watched his responsibility turn into something that looked like freedom. Briefly, under the white light. The form wasn't fixed. This was the first thing. It wasn't a clean human-to-wolf transition the way old stories described it. It was more like a negotiation. On some nights Naruto was mostly himself but bigger, faster, his senses stripped of every filter, his strength multiplied by something that didn't feel like chakra but moved through the same channels. On other nights, the wolf came through more, claws, height, a quality of stillness that was nothing like human stillness, a voice that was lower by an octave. But he was always Naruto. Hiruzen had been very clear about watching for the line where that stopped being true, and it never did. Kurama, interestingly, was less interested in fighting the wolf than in negotiating around it. Naruto started hearing the Ninetales clearly around month 4. Not words at first, impressions. A huge, simmering hostility directed outward at the village, a wariness directed inward at the wolf, and occasionally, when Naruto did something that caught the fox off guard, a flash of something that felt like grudging acknowledgement. "You're in there," Naruto said one evening, lying on his back in Field 7 with the moon rising and the wolf warm and waiting in his chest. He was 7 by then, alone because Hiruzen had had a council meeting and left him with a written set of instructions that Naruto had read once and memorized. "I can feel you." A pause. A low, enormous heat. Child. The voice was less a sound than a vibration, like a sound heard through stone. Don't address me as though we're equals. We're not equals, Naruto agreed. You're a giant fox trapped in a 7-year-old. That's pretty much the opposite of dignified. The heat spiked. Naruto felt the fur push at the inside of his skin and settled his breathing the way Hiruzen had taught him, not to suppress it, but to incorporate it, to make room. What is that thing in there with us? It wasn't quite a question. Mine, Naruto said simply. Another long pause, during which the moon cleared the tree line and the wolf surged up warm and clean, and somewhere behind it the Ninetales brooded in its cage with the affronted magnificence of something that had been the most dangerous thing in the room every day of its existence and was still adjusting to this new information. It's old, Kurama said finally, and Naruto heard something under the words, not respect, not exactly, but a shift in the quality of attention. Older than the villages. Older than the chakra system. Almost as old as me. Is that a problem? A sound that, on something smaller, might have been a snort. No, the Ninetales said. It's the first thing about you that isn't. Naruto lay there with the moon pouring down on him and the wolf stretched across his chest like a warm animal and the Ninetales settling back into its sulk, and he was 7 years old and alone in a training field and carrying 3 different weights in his body, and none of it felt like too much because he was built, apparently, for exactly this weight, and had been all along. He sat up when the moon was fully risen, and the wolf came through him like breathing out, and he ran the perimeter of Field 7 at a speed that left gouges in the earth, and the night was clear and cold and entirely, perfectly his. He was 8 when Danzo first came to him directly. He'd known about Danzo the way you know about a bruise, not by looking at it but by the way everything around it is careful. Hiruzen never mentioned the name but became slightly quieter in certain conversations. ANBU assignments rotated faster than normal on the nights Naruto used Field 7. And once, when Naruto was 7.5 and had pushed the wolf too hard and come back to his apartment with mud still on his hands, he'd found a small, smooth river stone on his windowsill with a seal mark on the bottom that he'd recognized from his own study of basic Fuinjutsu as a surveillance tag. He'd left it there. He wanted whoever placed it to keep thinking it hadn't been found. But he'd watched, after that, and he'd learned to distinguish Hiruzen's observation from the other kind, the kind that felt like being inventoried. So when the white-haired man appeared at the academy gate one afternoon, cloaked, one eye visible, the bandage on his face distinctive enough that Naruto had identified him from a description in a 2-year-old overheard conversation between Chunin instructors, Naruto didn't show surprise. He stopped 3 feet away and looked at him. Naruto Uzumaki, Danzo said. You're Shimura Danzo, Naruto said. The Hokage's advisor. Something shifted in Danzo's visible eye, not quite surprise, but a recalculation. You know who I am. I know what you look like. From descriptions. Naruto kept his voice easy. You want something. Danzo studied him for a moment. He was, Naruto thought, very good at the kind of stillness that was designed to make other people nervous. Naruto found it interesting but not troubling. The wolf gave him too clear a read on biological state for stillness alone to work as intimidation, and Danzo's heart was beating with the measured regularity of someone who was curious but not emotionally elevated. You're remarkable for your age, Danzo said, which was the kind of compliment that was also a category label. Thanks, Naruto said. Are you here with the Hokage's knowledge? A pause that was half a second too long. The Hokage and I share all relevant information. That's not what I asked, Naruto said pleasantly. Danzo looked at him with his one visible eye and Naruto looked back, and the wolf was very still behind his sternum, not dormant, but watching. The way a predator watches something it hasn't decided about yet. You're 8 years old, Danzo said. Yeah, Naruto agreed. You should be at home playing with other children. Other children don't play with me. He said it without self-pity, as a fact. Was there something you needed? Danzo was quiet for a long moment. He was, Naruto thought, a man who was used to having all of the information and was currently experiencing the disorienting sensation of having been outmaneuvered by someone who should, by every metric, be easier to outmaneuver. Not today, he said finally. Okay, Naruto said. But if you want to talk to me about something official, you should probably do it with the Hokage present. That's the proper process. Danzo looked at him for one more second, and then he turned and walked away down the street, unhurried, and Naruto watched him go and memorized the way he walked and the angle of his shoulders and the specific quality of his silence. He went home and told Hiruzen that evening, because Hiruzen had asked him, specifically, to tell him if anything unusual happened, and this qualified. He watched the old man's face go carefully still at the information and added it to his understanding of things. You handled it well, Hiruzen said after a moment. I know, Naruto said. What does he want with me? Hiruzen looked at him across the table and seemed to be deciding something. Everything, he said simply. Naruto nodded. He'd figured that. Then we'd better make sure he doesn't get it, he said. Outside, the moon was 3 days from full, and the wolf stirred at the base of his chest like something warming up, and Naruto opened his textbook and started on his homework, because the academy exams were in 2 weeks and he'd decided, this year, that he was going to ace them, and because being small and being smart were the two best things you could be when someone larger and more powerful decided to want something from you. He was 8 years old and he already understood this with the bone-deep clarity of someone who had been learning it his whole life. He underlined a passage in his textbook, pressed his pen to the margin, and began to write notes in the sharp, precise hand that nobody at the academy had expected from him, and the wolf sat warm in his chest, and the night settled around the village, and Naruto Uzumaki, who was already 2 things the world didn't have adequate categories for, added a third one quietly to the list, paying attention. The last thing that happened in Naruto's 6th year, the last significant thing, the thing that closed the chapter in the way that chapters close, with the sense of a door swinging shut on a room you can still see through the crack, happened on a night 2 weeks after the first transformation, when Hiruzen came to check on him and found him at his kitchen table with a single candle and a piece of paper. On the paper was a list. He'd written it carefully, in the deliberate hand of someone who was still learning kanji but was determined to get them right. The list read, things I can do that I couldn't before. Beneath it were 11 items, written in a 6-year-old's careful characters, listing enhancements to hearing and smell and speed and strength and the specific quality of alertness that had settled into him like a new sense, and at the bottom, in slightly larger characters as though he'd wanted to give it proper weight, a 12th item, I can feel when people are lying. Hiruzen read the list and felt, for the second time in 3 days, the complex emotion of a man watching someone he is responsible for become something that is going to either save the world or reshape it completely, and being genuinely uncertain which, and deciding that his job was to make sure the boy in question had enough information to make that call for himself when the time came. He put the list down and looked at Naruto. This is good work, he said. I know, Naruto said. I wrote it because I wanted to remember what was different. So I don't forget what I was before. Hiruzen studied him. Why would you want to remember that? Naruto looked at the list and then at the old man with his blue eyes that were already carrying something older than 6 years, and he said, very simply, because I want to remember being afraid. So I know when other people are. Hiruzen sat with that for a long time after he left, riding home through the empty late-night streets of Konoha with the weight of it in his chest. He had, he thought, made the right call. Keeping the secret. Protecting the boy. Buying time. He had also, he was beginning to understand, potentially underestimated the boy by approximately 6 years. He filed that thought away in the same drawer as the Sigma file and the cold tea and the falling tree, and he told himself he'd deal with it when the time was right. The moon set. The village slept. And somewhere in an apartment on the east side of Konoha, a 6-year-old boy with a wolf in his chest and a fox in his gut and a list of 11, 12, capabilities on a piece of paper in front of him sat very still in the candlelight and listened to everything. Chapter 2, The Boy Who Didn't Break 6 Years is a long time to carry a secret. It's long enough for a secret to stop feeling like a secret and start feeling like a second skeleton, something structural, load-bearing, so integrated into how you move through the world that you stop noticing it's there until someone bumps into it accidentally and the whole frame shudders. Naruto Uzumaki was 12 years old and he had 2 second skeletons, and he carried both of them the way he carried everything, forward, loudly, with the particular brand of aggressive normalcy that was the best disguise he'd ever found. You couldn't look closer at something that was already in your face. You couldn't investigate what was already announcing itself. So he wore orange. He made noise. He pulled pranks that were slightly too sophisticated for someone people had decided was stupid, but not so sophisticated that anyone examined the gap. He failed the clone jutsu in class with a consistency that felt, to anyone paying attention from the right angle, oddly deliberate, because the standard clone jutsu required an even, stable chakra output, and Naruto's chakra was anything but stable, threaded through as it was with 2 other forces that turned any attempt at delicate chakra control into the equivalent of threading a needle with a river. Nobody was paying attention from the right angle. Except Iruka, who was paying attention from many angles simultaneously and had reached the uncomfortable conclusion that he didn't fully understand what he was looking at. And Mizuki, who was paying attention for entirely different reasons, which Naruto had identified and catalogued and filed under eventual problem approximately 14 months ago. The morning started the way most mornings started, the academy, the noise, the performance. Naruto sat in his center-back seat with his feet on the desk and his arms behind his head and listened to Iruka explain the mechanics of the transformation jutsu while simultaneously listening to the conversation 2 classrooms over about a missing cat, the argument happening on the street below the window about a vegetable order, and the specific quality of Mizuki's breathing from the instructor's aide position at the side of the room, which had the tight, controlled quality of someone who was thinking very hard about something unrelated to transformation jutsu. Naruto, Iruka said. Feet off the desk. They help me think, Naruto said. They help you sleep. Same thing. The class laughed, or half of it did, the generous half, the ones who had learned to find him funny rather than troubling. The other half didn't make eye contact, same as always. Naruto registered both halves with the same calm temperature. He'd stopped needing the laughter to mean something several years ago. He put his feet down anyway, because fighting Iruka on small things cost energy he preferred to spend elsewhere. Sasuke Uchiha, 3 rows ahead and 2 to the right, had not laughed and was not making eye contact. He was doing the third thing, which was looking at Naruto with the particular expression he developed over approximately 2 years of sitting in Naruto's general vicinity, the one that said he'd noticed something and was annoyed that he'd noticed it and more annoyed that he couldn't figure out what he'd noticed. Naruto had been watching Sasuke notice him for 2 years and found it genuinely interesting, the same way he found most things interesting that other people found threatening. Sasuke was sharp. Sharper than he presented, sharper than his reputation required him to be. His reputation was prodigy, tragedy, lone survivor, a complete identity package, fully assembled, no assembly required, but underneath it, the wolf kept picking up something that didn't fit the package. A restlessness. A hunger that wasn't quite for revenge, or wasn't only for revenge. Something that was looking for something to measure itself against and not finding it in the available options. Naruto was aware, in the comfortable way of someone who had understood the shape of a situation for long enough that it had stopped needing active analysis, that Sasuke had found the thing he was looking for. He hadn't decided yet what to do about that. Today's practical will be individual transformation assessment, Iruka announced, and the class rearranged itself into the usual performance anxiety configuration. Standard scoring. Naruto, you're first. This was new. Usually Naruto was last, which he'd always suspected was Iruka's way of giving him the maximum possible time to observe everyone else and factor the observations in. Being put first was either a change of strategy or a provocation, and Naruto stood up and walked to the front of the room with the easy stride of someone who'd already decided this was fine. He performed the transformation jutsu. He turned himself into a perfect copy of Iruka, exact height, exact scar, exact ponytail, held it for a clean 4 count, and released it. It was technically flawless. The chakra control required to do it without letting the wolf current or the fox energy bleed through was the equivalent of maintaining a conversation in 3 languages simultaneously, and he'd been practicing it since he was 9 because he'd decided, at 9, that the best way to be underestimated was not to fail consistently but to succeed precisely as much as was expected of you and not a fraction more. The class was silent for a moment. Irika's expression was complicated. "Good," he said. "Solid control. You can." It was better than Sasuke's, Naruto said, sitting back down, conversational. The room went very still. Sasuke turned slowly in his seat, and his expression had moved from "I've noticed something" to "excuse me." "I haven't gone yet," Sasuke said. "I know," Naruto said. "I'm preemptively noting it for the record. You don't know what my transformation will look like." "Your chakra control is excellent," Naruto said, as if this were a neutral observation about the weather. "Mine was still better." "I'm just saying." Sasuke stared at him. Naruto looked back with the blank pleasantness of someone who had said a true thing and was comfortable waiting for the world to agree. "Sasuke," Irika said carefully. "When you're ready." Sasuke stood, and he was good, genuinely good, the transformation clean and precise and held with the effortless control of someone who'd been training since before he could read, and when he sat back down the class erupted in the usual admiring noise and several girls wrote things in their notebooks, and Sasuke looked straight at Naruto. Naruto tilted his head slightly and said nothing, and let the silence make the argument for him. Sasuke's jaw tightened in a way that was somehow more satisfying than any verbal response would have been. Irika was looking between them with the expression of a man watching a chess match he hadn't known was being played and wasn't sure he had the clearance to intervene in. Mizuki, from the side wall, was watching Naruto with the tight breathing quality of someone who had just had a hypothesis confirmed. Naruto filed that too, under eventual problem, and decided that the file had been open long enough. He found Irika after class. Not literally after class, 2 hours after class, when most students had gone home or to the practice fields and the academy corridors had the hollow, institutional quiet of an empty building. Irika was in his classroom marking assessments with the particular slumped posture of a man who had been doing paperwork for too long. Naruto sat down across from him without being invited and put his elbows on the desk. "Mizuki's going to do something," Naruto said. Irika looked up. He set his pen down with the deliberate care of someone adjusting to a register change. "What makes you say that?" "He watches me differently than he watches everyone else. Has been for about a year." Naruto kept his voice level, matter of fact. "Not like he's afraid of me or doesn't like me. Like he's waiting for something specific. And today when I did the transformation, when it was clean, he had the look of someone who had their theory confirmed." Irika was quiet for a moment. He was good at this kind of quiet, attentive, not dismissive. It was one of the things Naruto had catalogued about him in the positive column years ago. "That's a very precise observation," Irika said. "I'm a precise person," Naruto said. "When I want to be." "Yes, I've noticed that." Irika leaned back in his chair and looked at him with the tiredness and affection of a man who had been trying to understand Naruto for 3 years and had made significant progress and knew the progress was still incomplete. "What do you think he's planning?" "Something involving the Forbidden Scroll," Naruto said. "He was in the restricted records room last week. I could smell the scroll room's specific combination of preservation seals and old paper on him when he came back out." Irika stared at him. "You could smell, the academy building has a very particular smell-layered system," Naruto said, which was technically true and also entirely avoided the question. "I just notice things." Irika opened his mouth, closed it, and made the choice, the same choice Naruto had watched him make a dozen times over 3 years, to accept the information and table the methodology. "If you're right," Irika said carefully, "this would be a serious security issue." "I'm right," Naruto said. "I'll look into it." He paused. "Naruto, why are you telling me this?" Naruto looked at him directly. "Because you're the one person in this building who'd actually do something about it." Irika absorbed this. It was, Naruto could tell, not the answer he'd expected, and it was landing somewhere softer than the man had braced for. Go home, Iruka said. It's getting late. Naruto stood. Ramen first. The good place. I have work, the good place, Iruka-sensei. I'll wait. Iruka looked at him for a long moment, and then he picked up his pen and began marking faster with the efficient energy of a man who had been talked into something reasonable against his instincts and had decided to be efficient about giving in. They went to Ichiraku's and Naruto ate 3 bowls and Iruka ate 1 and they talked about nothing important, and it was one of the best evenings Naruto had spent in recent memory, which said something true about the texture of his life and which he filed away not with analysis but with the simple warmth of something he intended to remember. The Mizuki situation resolved itself differently than Naruto had expected, which was irritating, because he'd planned for 3 scenarios and the 4th one hadn't been on his list. It happened 3 weeks after the Iruka conversation, on a night when the moon was a day from full and the wolf was that particular combination of alert and restless that happened in the 24 hours before, not the full surge, not the transformation, but a low current that made Naruto's senses sharper than usual and his patience for nonsense proportionally shorter. He was on his way back from Field 7, where he'd spent the last 2 hours running drills, not transformation, but the other things, the things Hiruzen had taught him and the things he'd extrapolated from his own experimentation, which now included a set of physical enhancement techniques that used the wolf current as a secondary chakra source, layered under his normal chakra in a way that was nearly impossible to detect with standard sensor techniques because it didn't feel like chakra. It felt like the moon. He was cutting through the park south of the academy when he heard the second set of footsteps. They were good. A trained shinobi, deliberate about noise minimization, walking at the specific cadence of someone who was following rather than walking to a destination. 2 of them, actually, he distinguished the second set half a second after the first, slightly further back, slightly to the right, moving in the staggered pattern of coordinated observation. Route, he knew immediately. Not Hiruzen's ANBU, he knew their individual gates by now, all of them, had memorized them the way other kids memorized song lyrics. These were different. The particular quality of their silence was trained into something smoother and deeper than the standard ANBU curriculum produced. He kept walking. Same pace, same direction. He counted 30 steps while they followed, mapping the park's geometry, the tree placement, the walls on 3 sides, the open gate to the east. He was considering his options with the cool lateral thinking that was half training and half the wolf's natural gift for spatial problem solving when the first one dropped from the tree to his left and the second one materialized from the shadow behind the eastern wall, and both of them were masked and one was holding a sealed containment tag, the kind used on suppressed targets, and Naruto stopped walking and turned to face the closer one and said, "Hi." "Uzumaki Naruto," the closer one said. "Come with us." "No," Naruto said pleasantly. A pause. The root operative was, he thought, not accustomed to that response being the first one. Most people, when root appeared and made a demand, had a different first response. "This isn't a request," the second one said from behind. "I know what a request sounds like," Naruto said. He didn't turn toward the second voice, he didn't need to, he had the position mapped, but he shifted his weight very slightly, the kind of shift that was technically nothing but changed every option available to him. A request has a question mark. You're using a period. Those are different punctuation. He glanced at the containment tag. "What's that for?" "Precaution," the first one said. "Against what?" "Against the Ninetales." Naruto looked at the tag for another moment. "It won't work," he said, which was true, though not for the reason they thought. Standard bijou suppression seals worked on chakra signatures. The wolf current would still be entirely operational with that seal in place, because it was not chakra. "It will work fine," the first one said, with the confidence of someone who'd been assured by their technical team. "Okay," Naruto said. "If you say so. But here's my question," he tilted his head slightly, "does Danzo-san know that the Third Hokage has been personally supervising my development for 6 years?" Because if he does, then this is a sanctioned operation and I'll come quietly. And if he doesn't, then this is unsanctioned, which means you're both technically in violation of. We are not here to discuss, which is it, though? Naruto asked. Sanctioned or not? The two of them exchanged a look. It was fast and professional, but Naruto caught it and it told him everything. They had orders, but the orders had been framed in a way that avoided the specific question of whether Hiruzen had been consulted. Last warning, the first one said. Come with us. I'm 12, Naruto said. Do you know what the legal standard is for detaining a minor without guardian notification? The operative stopped. Something shifted in the quality of his stillness, the particular recalibration of someone who has just realized that the 12-year-old they were sent to retrieve has been doing something other than panicking. What happened next happened fast. The first operative moved in, good technique, low center of gravity, reaching for Naruto's shoulder with one hand and reaching for the tag application point with the other, and Naruto let him come most of the way and then was simply not there, having stepped left and slightly back with the unhurried precision of someone who had trained this specific angle for approximately 4 years. The operative's hand closed on air. Naruto had the man's wrist before the step fully landed, and he used the man's own momentum with a control that should not have been physically possible for a 12-year-old because it wasn't physically possible for a regular 12-year-old. He applied exactly enough force, routed through the wolf's natural red on joint mechanics, to redirect the man face-first into the tree behind Naruto without injuring him severely, because injuring root operatives severely was the kind of thing that created serious cascading problems, and Naruto had a very clear hierarchy of problems he was willing to create at any given time. The operative hit the tree, rebounded, and spun into a ready stance with impressive recovery time. The second one was already moving from the right, seal tag open, trying to flank. Naruto dropped flat under the tag application, rolled right, and came up 3 meters away standing straight with his hands in his pockets. That was good, he told the second operative. You're fast. Both of them stopped. They were doing the recalculation again, both of them this time, the one where the parameters of what they were dealing with were being revised in real time. I'm not going anywhere with you, Naruto said. His voice was easy, almost friendly. Not tonight, not without the Hokage's explicit written order with his chakra signature on it. If Danzo-san has a legitimate reason to talk to me, he knows where to find me. He's found me before. He paused to let that land, the information that he'd clocked Danzo before, that he'd been tracking the shape of Root's interest in him, that he had been aware for years that this conversation was coming. I'd appreciate it if you told him I said hi, he added. The two operatives looked at each other again. Then the first one reached forward and picked up the containment tag from the ground where it had fallen. This conversation didn't happen, he said. Obviously, Naruto agreed. They left the way Root operatives leave, clean and fast and with the specific quality of vanishing that was a practiced art form. Naruto watched them go until they were beyond even his range of perception, then took a slow breath, let the wolf current settle back from the readiness it had spiked into, and looked up at the sky. Tomorrow was the full moon. He could feel it in the quality of the night air, the precise sharpness of every smell and sound, the way the light from the moon, not quite full, not yet, but close, fell differently on the ground than it would the night after. He pulled out a small notebook from his jacket pocket and added 2 lines. Root made direct contact. 2 operatives. Containment tag, Bijou spec. They didn't know about the other thing. He underlined the second line twice, because that was significant. Danzo had enough information to send Root with Bijou suppression equipment, which meant someone had given him the outline of what Naruto was, Jinchuriki, dangerous, requiring special handling. But they hadn't given him the rest of it. Which meant either Hiruzen's information containment had held better than Naruto had privately estimated, or Danzo knew and was choosing not to act on it yet, which was a different kind of problem. He pocketed the notebook and headed home, and the near full moon lit the street in silver white, and the wolf walked beside him like a shadow that was slightly too large. He told Hiruzen the next morning. The old man's face did several things in quick succession: concern, anger, calculation, and then the settled expression that meant he'd reached a decision and was now implementing it with the particular efficiency of someone who was very good at being calm under pressure. "How many operatives?" he asked. "2. Route trained. 1 had a containment tag. Bijouspec." "Yes." Hiruzen was quiet. They were in the Hokage's office, which Naruto had entered through the side window rather than the main door because the main door was staffed by assistants who were not cleared for this type of conversation, and Hiruzen had long since stopped commenting on the window entry. "They didn't know the full scope," Naruto said. "No. They wouldn't." He looked at Naruto carefully. "Are you hurt?" "No." He paused. "I redirected one of them into a tree. Enough to make a point, not enough to damage anything. I think I broke his dignity slightly." Hiruzen made a sound that was not quite a laugh and was not quite not one. "Naruto. I know. Creating conflict with root operatives is, they came to me," Naruto said. The friendliness dropped from his voice, not to hostility but to something direct and clean. "I was walking home. I didn't start anything. I finished something they started. Those are different." Hiruzen looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded once, the kind of nod that meant "You're right and I know it and we both know I know it." "I'll speak to Danzo," he said. "Okay." Naruto stood. "Old man." "Yes. The thing you told me 6 years ago, that you'd always come yourself." He looked at the Hokage directly, with the 12-year-old version of the same eyes that had looked up from a kneeling position in a forest clearing and decided to extend provisional trust. "I need that to still be true. Not because I can't handle things. I can handle things." He gestured vaguely toward the window. "Obviously. But because," he stopped, working out the phrasing, "because I need there to be at least one person who shows up before it becomes a fight. Not after." Hiruzen was quiet for a longer moment than usual. "Yes," he said. "That is still true." Naruto nodded and went to the window and was gone, dropping the 3 stories to the street below with the easy landing of someone whose bones and joints had been reinforced by 6 years of gradual physical development that no academy record had any knowledge of. Hiruzen sat for a moment in the silence, and then summoned a messenger and sent a very specific, very formal communique to a specific address on the north side of Konoha, and the message was brief and the tone was friendly and the content was not. The graduation exam was 3 days away when Naruto had the conversation with Kurama that he'd been building toward for about 2 years. He was in Field 7, always Field 7, his field, which he'd started thinking of as his the same way you think of a piece of furniture as yours after you've put enough time into it, lying on his back in the grass at midnight with the full moon directly above and the transformation running at what he'd learned to call half-depth. Not the full surge. Not the claws or the height. Just the senses and the speed and the warm, clean current of the wolf moving through him like a second bloodstream. He'd been practicing something specific for 3 weeks, and tonight it was working. He was maintaining the half-depth while simultaneously holding a standard chakra coil in his regular network, which required the equivalent of mental independent hand movement, 2 completely separate, structurally different energy systems operating simultaneously without interference. It was difficult in the way that things that require the complete integration of mind and body are difficult, and tonight it was working, and the satisfaction of that had a particular quality that was entirely his own and did not require an audience. "You've gotten better," Kurama said. "I know." He kept his eyes on the moon. "I've been working on the layering." "It'll be useful," the fox said, with the particular gruffness of someone delivering a compliment through gritted teeth. "I know that too." A pause. The vast heat of Kurama's presence settled in the deeper space beneath the wolf's warmth, 2 enormous things sharing a space that was, anatomically speaking, one human boy, and the fact that this worked at all said something about either the depth of Uzumaki chakra capacity or the fundamental unreasonableness of the universe. "You're graduating in 3 days, Kurama said. "Assuming I can replicate the clone jutsu consistently enough to pass the practical." "You can do it." "I know I can do it." The question is whether I want to do it in a way that tips my actual control level. Why does that matter to you? Naruto considered this. It was a fair question. He'd been asked versions of it by Hiruzen and had given the functional answer, the strategic one about information management. But Kurama had been inside his chest for 12 years and deserved the real answer. Because the academy is the first place I'll be officially ranked, he said. And the rank I carry out of there sets what people expect from me. If I graduate at the top, people look at me more carefully. And right now, being looked at carefully is dangerous, Kurama finished. Dangerous, Naruto agreed. Not for me. For the secret. And the secret is, he paused, I know he made it to protect me. I'm not angry about it. But I'm the one living inside it, and I want to be the one who decides when it ends. The fox was quiet for a long time. The moon moved a fraction of an arc across the sky, and the wolf current hummed, and somewhere in the forest a fox, a real, small, ordinary fox, moved through the undergrowth and stopped and seemed to sense something and moved on. That's fair, Kurama said eventually, and it was only 3 words but coming from Kurama it had the weight of something more considered, something that had been sitting with the question longer than the question had been spoken. Do you care? Naruto asked. About the secret. About how any of this goes. Another pause. I care, Kurama said, about not being inside someone who gets killed by a mob. My preferences are largely self-interested. Largely, Naruto noted. Largely. A long beat. You're not the worst host I could have had. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Don't push it. Naruto laughed, really laughed, not the performed version, the real one that he mostly kept to himself, and the sound went up into the night air and the wolf ran a circuit of his chest in something that was not quite joy but was adjacent to it, and overhead the moon burned white and whole and ancient, and Naruto lay in the grass of his field and felt, briefly, completely, like exactly what he was, something the world hadn't made a category for yet, and found it entirely sufficient. He passed the graduation exam on a Tuesday. He performed the clone jutsu, one perfect clone, the minimum required, held for the exact duration of the standard assessment, and Iruka marked the scroll and Mizuki's breathing went tight and Naruto received his headband with the same equanimity he brought to most things that had already been decided. He stood outside the academy afterward with the headband in his hand, the metal plate cool against his palm, and looked at the leaf engraving. Kiba was already putting his on with the specific energy of someone who had been waiting to do exactly this for years. Hinata was holding hers carefully, both hands, the same way she held anything she was afraid of accidentally damaging. Sasuke had his on already, naturally, forehead, perfectly centered, without apparent effort or celebration. Sasuke looked over at Naruto. At the headband still in his hand rather than on his head. His expression asked the question without bothering to form words. Naruto looked back at him and put the headband on slowly, deliberately, in the way of someone who was deciding something rather than performing something, and when the metal plate settled against his forehead he held Sasuke's gaze for a moment and saw the recalculation happen again, the one he'd been watching for 2 years, the one that said I don't know what you are but I know it's more than this. He gave Sasuke a slight nod, nothing more. Sasuke looked away first. Naruto tucked his hands in his pockets and turned toward Ichiraku's, and the afternoon sun was warm and the village was alive around him and 3 days from now he would be assigned to a team, and the wolf walked with him step for step through the bright ordinary afternoon, and nobody on the street knew what was walking among them, and that was fine. That was exactly fine. For now. Chapter 3, Team 7 Smells Wrong. Kakashi Hatake was late because he was always late, and he was always late because punctuality was a form of vulnerability. It told people you cared about the schedule, and caring about the schedule told people what you valued, and what you valued told people where to apply pressure, and Kakashi had made a career out of not giving people places to apply pressure. Also, the book was at a good part. He appeared on the roof of the academy building at 7:43, which was 2 hours and 43 minutes after the assigned meeting time, and looked down at the 3 students sitting in the classroom below through the skylight with the casual assessment of someone who had been reading people for longer than these 3 had been alive. The pink-haired girl was annoyed in the performative way of someone who wanted to be seen being annoyed, which meant she was also slightly pleased that someone was finally here to see it. She'd rearranged the desks while waiting, not randomly, he noted, but into a configuration that put her adjacent to the Uchiha boy and slightly forward, which was a territorial claim dressed as organizational efficiency. The Uchiha was sitting with his arms crossed and his eyes closed, and Kakashi had spent enough time around people who were performing indifference to recognize that Sasuke Uchiha was genuinely indifferent to the wait and genuinely irritated by his own indifference, which was more interesting than performed indifference. He wanted to care about something. He was running out of appropriate targets. And then there was the third one. Kakashi had read the file. He'd read it 3 times, actually, which was 2 more times than he read most genin files, because most genin files were exactly what they looked like and this one was not. The file on Naruto Uzumaki was, on its surface, the least interesting file in the batch: below average academic performance, poor chakra control marks, no notable clan affiliation, no documented Kekkei Genkai, psychological notes suggesting attention-seeking behavior and difficulty with authority. Standard Jinchuriki adjacent profile. The kind of file designed to communicate nothing unusual here, please look elsewhere. The fact that it was that smooth was the problem. Kakashi had been a jonin for 16 years. He'd read a lot of files. Files that were written to make you stop reading them were different from files that were just boring, and he could feel the difference the way you felt the difference between a floor that was structurally sound and a floor with something wrong underneath the boards. He looked at Naruto through the skylight. The boy was sitting at the back of the room, not back left, dead center back, with his feet on the desk and his eyes apparently closed, but his head had moved twice in the last 4 minutes in ways that tracked sound sources outside the room, once toward the east window when a bird landed on the ledge, once toward the corridor when a chunin walked past 3 doors down. The movements were small, brief, and almost certainly unconscious. Almost certainly. Kakashi turned a page in his book and thought about the file's smoothness, and the unconscious tracking, and the intel he'd pulled from an unofficial conversation with Irika Yumino 6 days ago, during which Irika had said, very carefully, "He's more capable than his record suggests," and then changed the subject with the practiced efficiency of someone who had decided that was all they were authorized to say. He dropped through the skylight. "You're late," Sakura said, which was technically 2 hours and 43 minutes of compressed emotion delivered in 3 syllables. "Ma," Kakashi said. "I got lost on the road of life." "That's not, introduce yourselves," he said, sitting on the desk at the front of the room with the comfortable ownership of someone who had decided this was a chair. "Name, likes, dislikes, dreams for the future." "Aren't you supposed to go first?" Sakura asked. "I'm your sensei. I model the format." He gestured vaguely. "Name, likes, dislikes, dreams. You first." He pointed at Sakura. Sakura introduced herself with the particular mixture of genuine personality and performance that 12-year-olds managed when they were trying to seem both relatable and impressive. She liked the things she liked, including Sasuke, which she didn't say directly but communicated through intonation, and disliked Naruto, which she also didn't say directly but also communicated through intonation. Kakashi filed the intonations. Sasuke introduced himself with an efficiency that was almost impressive. Name, nothing he liked particularly, nothing he disliked worth mentioning, one goal. The goal was restore my clan and kill a certain man, delivered with the flat effect of someone who had been saying it long enough that it had stopped feeling like emotion and started feeling like structural information, like a load-bearing wall. Kakashi had heard variations of this introduction twice in previous years and had read how both those placements ended, and he didn't let any of that onto his face. "Naruto," he said. Naruto took his feet off the desk in the particular unhurried way of someone who had been waiting for their turn and was now ready to give it exactly the energy it deserved. He looked at Kakashi directly, full eye contact, steady, the kind that evaluated as openly as it met, and said, "Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen and training and figuring things out. I dislike people who decide what something is before they look at it properly." He paused. "My dream is to become Hokage. But that's a long-term goal. My immediate goal is to not be underestimated by my own sensei before we've actually done anything. Silence. Sakura looked startled. Sasuke had opened his eyes. Kakashi kept his expression exactly where it was, which was a skill and required a small amount of effort, because the boy had just looked at him and said, "I've clocked what you're doing and I'm letting you know I've clocked it," with the easy confidence of someone who had decided that this information being shared was more useful than it being withheld. "Fair," Kakashi said. Naruto sat back. "I thought so." Kakashi looked between the three of them, and something settled in him, the specific sense of a team being, potentially, interesting, which was rare enough that he always noticed it. "Tomorrow morning," he said. "Training ground 3. 7 a.m. He slid off the desk. "Bring your equipment. Don't eat breakfast." "Why not?" Sakura asked. "Because you'll probably vomit," he said, which was technically true and also designed to be unsettling, and left before anyone could follow up. On the roof, he opened his book and found his page, and below him the three students filed out of the classroom, and he heard, with his own excellent hearing, Naruto say, quietly, to no one in particular, "He smells like lightning and old grief." Kakashi looked up from his book. Below, Naruto walked out of the building without looking up, without any indication that he'd intended to be heard, and Kakashi stood on the roof with his book open and his page found and thought about that sentence for considerably longer than he'd planned to. Training ground 3 at 7 a.m. had the specific quality of mornings that know they're going to become something more than mornings. The air was cool and still, the ground damp from overnight dew, and the three training posts stood in a row with the patient permanence of things that had absorbed a lot of history. Kakashi arrived at 7:23, by which point he had expected to find 3 hungry, annoyed students. He found 2 hungry, annoyed students and 1 student who had arrived so early that the dew pattern around his spot at the base of a tree had dried completely, indicating he'd been sitting there since at least before sunrise. This student was eating an apple. "I thought I said no breakfast," Kakashi said. "You said don't eat breakfast," Naruto said. "I interpreted that as prior to arrival." The spirit of the instruction was presumably about performance in the exercise, which 1 apple doesn't meaningfully affect. "The caloric content of, give Sakura the apple," Kakashi said. Naruto considered this, shrugged, and tossed it to Sakura, who caught it with the reflexive surprise of someone who hadn't expected to be included. Kakashi held up the 2 bells. He explained the exercise. 1 objective, get a bell. The explanation was familiar from Academy training theory. It was a famous test, or at least famous enough that Academy students had discussed it, and he watched all 3 of them register it at different speeds and with different calculations behind their eyes. Sakura, processing the bell-to-student ratio, arriving at "one of us fails," then beginning the immediate side calculation of "how do I not be the one who fails?" Sasuke, dismissing the ratio question immediately and focusing on the tactical problem of how to take a bell from a jonin, which was more interesting to him than the social implications. Naruto, doing something different, something Kakashi caught in the 2-second flicker before the boy's expression settled into the appropriate focus. Not processing the bell-to-student ratio. Not working the tactical problem. Reassessing the exercise itself, looking at it from a structural angle, trying to determine what the exercise was actually measuring as opposed to what it said it was measuring. In 20 years of running bell tests, Kakashi had had students figure out the real answer before the test started exactly twice. He was mildly curious whether this was about to be 3. "Begin," he said. Sakura and Sasuke vanished into the tree line. Naruto didn't move. Kakashi looked at him. Naruto looked back. "You're not running," Kakashi said. "Running seems premature," Naruto said. "Can I ask you something first? The test has started." "I know. But you're not attacking yet either." He tilted his head. "Are you actually going to attack us? Or is the threat of being attacked the point?" Kakashi was quiet. "Because if the point is to see how we respond under pressure with uneven odds," Naruto continued, "then running immediately is probably the wrong call. It accepts the framing of the exercise without questioning the framing, which is, he paused, probably what most people do. Most people, Kakashi agreed carefully. But the bells are 1 per 2 people, which means the exercise is designed to produce conflict within the team, which means, Naruto stopped himself. He was working it out in real time, and watching the conclusion arrive in his expression was interesting. It's not about the bells. Isn't it? It's about whether we'll work together or compete. He paused. Which means the right move is to get all 3 of us coordinating immediately. Which means I should go find Sasuke and Sakura right now instead of standing here. He looked at Kakashi. But I'm standing here, he said. Because there's a third layer, isn't there? You know that any team that figures out the cooperation angle immediately either has abnormal communication from the start, which is rare, or has one person who's done the analysis and is driving the others toward the answer, which means the test is also measuring whether I can get 2 people I've never worked with to trust my read on a situation in under 2 minutes. Kakashi said nothing. His expression said nothing. He was quite good at this. Okay, Naruto said. He cracked his knuckles with a sound like small thunder. I'll be back. He moved into the tree line and Kakashi listened to his footsteps vanish, and then continued listening, because the footsteps had gone quiet in a way that was not normal quiet, not the graduated fade of distance, but the abrupt silence of someone who had shifted to a movement mode that produced less noise than a forest animal. He rolled the bells in his palm. He smells like lightning and old grief. He thought about that sentence for the 4th time in 17 hours. 3 minutes passed. Then Sasuke came out of the trees on his right, not running, walking with purpose, which meant he'd been talked to and had reached an acceptable conclusion, which was, given Sasuke's profile, approximately a minor miracle. Behind him, Sakura emerged from the left, and she was eating the rest of the apple, and both of them had the specific expression of people who had been given information they were still processing but had decided to act on anyway. The exercise is about teamwork, Sakura said. Is it? Kakashi said. Naruto said, what do you think? Sakura's jaw tightened. I think Naruto's probably right. Why? Because the bell ratio doesn't make sense as a pure skill assessment and you don't seem like someone who runs skill assessments at the genin level, she said, with the particular speed of someone who was surprised by their own conclusion but committed to it. You seem like someone who's looking for something specific. And Sasuke, Kakashi said. Sasuke was looking somewhere to Kakashi's left. He's flanking, he said. Kakashi turned. Naruto was there, not quite behind him, off angle, approximately 4 meters, standing completely still in the shadow of the largest training post with an expression that was somewhere between satisfied and amused. He had not made a sound on approach. He had not displaced a single twig. His entry into Kakashi's awareness had been entirely through Sasuke's observation rather than through any of Kakashi's own senses, which meant, Kakashi let the thought complete itself and filed the result in a specific mental folder that he reserved for information he needed to sit with before he understood it fully. Teamwork's the answer, Naruto said. But you're not going to give us the bells for getting the answer. That'd be too easy. Would it? You're a jonin. We're 3 genin who've never worked together. We'd have to actually threaten you before you'd respect the coordination enough to pass us. He paused. So what's the threshold? Are we trying to physically take the bells, or is demonstrating a coherent tactical coordination the bar? Kakashi looked at all 3 of them. Come at me, he said. All 3. Simultaneously. What happened in the next 4 minutes was the most interesting bell test Kakashi had run in 11 years. Sasuke opened with fire, Gakakyu no Jutsu, enormous and sincere, nothing held back, the kind of technique that a prodigy uses when they've decided something is worth their real output. Sakura moved simultaneously on the right, targeting Kakashi's blind side with the genjutsu Kakashi had noted in her file as her current best technique. Both were good. Both required actual response, He moved left to clear the fireball's effective radius and dispersed the genjutsu's entry point with a sharp chakra pulse, and that was when the third element arrived. Naruto came from above. Not a jump. Something faster and lower than a jump, from the top of the training post to Kakashi in under a second, and the trajectory was wrong, the geometry of it was wrong, because the distance and the time didn't produce the speed that the jump's height should have allowed. He was using something underneath his chakra, running it through his legs in a way that read as chakra enhancement but wasn't exactly, and his hand was going for the bells with the clean, direct certainty of someone who had picked the angle before the engagement started. Kakashi let him almost get there. His hand closed on Naruto's wrist half a centimeter from the bells. He applied the minimum force necessary to redirect without injury, and felt it immediately. The density was wrong. The wrist in his hand had the specific resistance profile of someone whose physical development was 2 or 3 times ahead of the standard for their age, reinforced at the structural level in a way that didn't feel like simple training. And the energy underneath, the thing that wasn't exactly chakra, he felt it up close now, and it was warm and ancient and utterly unlike anything in the standard catalog of energies that a jonin was taught to identify. He released Naruto's wrist. They were face to face, Kakashi crouching slightly, Naruto landing from the redirect, and something had changed in Naruto's expression. Not fear. Not even caution. Just a clear, steady awareness that something had been communicated that hadn't been put into words. You felt that, Naruto said quietly. I felt something, Kakashi said, equally quiet. A beat. Around them, Sasuke and Sakura were mid-approach and had slowed, reading the register shift in the air between their teammates the way you read weather. Naruto held his gaze for 2 seconds, 3, with those blue eyes that were carrying something older than 12 years, and then he stepped back and held out his hand. Pass us, he said. We earned it. Kakashi looked at the hand. At the team. At the training ground that had, in 4 minutes, taught him more than the file had managed in 3 readings. He unclipped both bells and held them out. You did, he said. Both bells go to whoever holds them. You decide how to divide it. Naruto took the bells and turned and handed one to Sasuke without looking, the way you pass something to someone you've already decided trusts you. Sasuke caught it. Looked at it. Said nothing. What about me? Sakura asked. We all pass or none of us pass, Naruto said. That's the real answer, isn't it? He looked at Kakashi. Nobody gets tied to the post. Nobody gets tied to the post, Kakashi confirmed. Sakura let out a breath. Sasuke pocketed his bell with the specific careful movement of someone handling something that had acquired meaning. Naruto's bell disappeared into his jacket. Good, Naruto said. What's for lunch? Kakashi filed the report that evening, sitting at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee and his mask pushed up to his nose and the specific weariness of someone who had just had a long day of having their assumptions revised. The report was standard format with 2 non-standard addendums. The first addendum read, Uzumaki, N, physical capability exceeds documented profile significantly. Chakra control demonstrates unusual secondary layering that does not match Bija chakra resonance signatures. Recommend full assessment by medical team. The second addendum read, Uzumaki, N, situational analysis and tactical adaptability at level consistent with experienced chunin. Team coordination instincts are pronounced and natural. Not consistent with documented academic performance. Recommend review of assessment history. He stopped typing. He thought about what he'd felt through the wrist contact. The density, the warmth, the specific quality of it that had no classification in any chakra taxonomy he'd been taught. He thought about the sentence, he smells like lightning and old grief. He thought about the bell test, not the technique or the teamwork, but the moment before it, when the boy had stood in front of him and calmly worked through the layers of an exercise that most grown shinobi didn't fully see until he explained it afterward, and had done it in 2 minutes, and had then told him he'd done it, which was the part that stayed with Kakashi most. Because most people, when they figured out an advantage, used it silently. Naruto had announced it. Had looked Kakashi in the eye and said I see you and let the seeing be visible. That was either ego or confidence, and Kakashi had enough experience with both to know which one it looked like. He finished the report, both addendums included, and sent it to the Hokage's office through secure channel and sat back and thought about the file, and about the smoothness of the file, and about whatever was underneath the boards. He opened his book and found he couldn't read it. He made a second coffee. The first team mission was a cat. The cat's name was Tora, which was the name all rich people's cats seemed to be named, and it had escaped from the fire daimyo's wife with the specific intent of causing maximum inconvenience to the shinobi system of Konoha, a mission objective it pursued with remarkable success. Naruto found it in 4 minutes. He didn't explain how. He walked to the east side of the mission area, stopped in front of a particular hedge with his head slightly tilted, and reached in and extracted the cat with both hands and the expression of someone performing a minor administrative task. Tora, who had apparently decided to be vicious to every human who came near it, made approximately 1 second of effort to scratch Naruto before settling into complete immobility with the look of a small animal that had encountered something it didn't have a category for and had defaulted to stillness. It doesn't like being caught, Sakura observed. It doesn't mind being found, Naruto said. He was holding the cat with a kind of easy confidence that was, Sakura had been noticing over 3 days of team assignment, a consistent feature across everything Naruto did physically. He never fumbled. He never reached for something and missed. His hands and his body were in a state of continuous, quiet preparedness that she'd initially attributed to training but was increasingly beginning to think was something else, something structural. It just doesn't want to be chased. There's a difference. How do you know what the cat wants? She asked. Naruto looked at the cat, which was looking back at him with the flat, evaluating stare of a creature that had decided to extend conditional tolerance. It's not that hard to read what things want, he said. If you're paying attention. He looked at her while he said the last sentence, and Sakura had the specific uncomfortable feeling of being read accurately, which she covered by taking the cat from him and saying something about completing the mission. Sasuke, walking 3 feet to Naruto's left with the slight forward lean of someone who had been processing the last 3 days of information and had not finished, said, "You heard it." In the hedge. Yes, Naruto said. From how far? A pause. Far enough. Sasuke looked at him. That's not an answer. It's the answer I'm giving. Sasuke's jaw did the thing it did when he'd received information he found inadequate, which Naruto had decided privately was one of his better expressions because it was honest in a way most of his expressions weren't. You're better than your file, Sasuke said. I know, Naruto said. Why is your file wrong? Lots of files are wrong, Naruto said. People write them based on what they see, and what they see depends on what they expect, and what they expect, he gestured vaguely. You know how this works. You're a ninja. Sasuke looked at him for a long moment. You're hiding something, he said. Everyone's hiding something, Naruto said. That's what it means to be a person. I'm not. You absolutely are, Naruto said. You're hiding how much you want a rival. The silence that followed was spectacular. Sasuke opened his mouth, found it empty, and closed it. His expression ran through 3 states in about 1 second. Naruto kept walking with his hands in his pockets, and something about his absolute calm in the wake of that statement made it land harder than any taunt or challenge would have. Sakura looked between them with the fascinated horror of someone watching a controlled demolition. I don't, Sasuke started. It's fine, Naruto said. I've been watching you watch me for 2 years. I don't mind. He glanced over. You're going to be hard to catch up to. But that's fine. I like problems that aren't easy. Sasuke stopped walking entirely. Naruto didn't stop. He kept moving, hands in his pockets, back straight, easy stride, like he hadn't just told the most closed-off person in their year group exactly what he'd been carrying around and handed it to him like it was nothing significant. Catch up to. Sasuke said. You heard me, Naruto said, which was Sasuke's own answer to his own question from 40 seconds ago, delivered back to him with a precision that was either unintentional or a masterclass in casual verbal judo, and Sasuke stood in the middle of the path and watched his new teammate walk away from him and felt, for the first time in 3 years, the specific, irritating, unwanted electricity of being genuinely interested in another person. Sakura looked at him. "Close your mouth," she said. He realized it was open and closed it. The second mission was a border patrol supplement, D-rank, in the forest ring south of Konoha. The kind of mission where nothing happened and the purpose was to teach genin that most of shinobi work was exactly that, nothing happening, in uncomfortable conditions, for longer than you wanted. Nothing happened until the 4th hour. Naruto stopped walking. It was the kind of stop that had a quality to it, not hesitation, not a stumble, but a specific halt with the full-body stillness of something listening. Kakashi was 20 feet ahead and stopped when the sound of Naruto's footsteps didn't continue, and turned. Naruto was standing in the middle of the path with his head angled slightly east and his eyes focused on nothing visible. The wolf was absolutely awake behind his sternum. Not the full surge, they were 2 weeks from the full moon, but the daytime current, the constant alertness, and right now it was pointing like a compass needle. "Something's wrong," he said. "Define wrong," Kakashi said. Naruto was quiet for 3 seconds, which was not nothing. When he spoke, his voice was even and specific. "There are 5 people approximately 260 meters east-northeast. They're not moving. They smell like," he caught himself, not stopping exactly, but making a half-beat adjustment that Kakashi caught, "their chakra feels tense. Like they've been stopped for a while and they're not happy about it." Sakura looked at him. "You can sense chakra at 260 meters. "I'm getting better at it," Naruto said neutrally. Kakashi was looking at him with the specific quality of attention he'd been developing since day 1 of this team assignment, the one that was cataloging information without making its conclusions audible. 5 people, he said. 5, Naruto confirmed. "One of them is injured. Different energy. Slower." Kakashi was quiet for a moment. Then he made 2 hand signs and sent 3 shadow clones ahead at treetop level. They returned in under 2 minutes and the original dispelled them and received the information. "For missing Nin and a captured courier," he said. "About 240 meters east-northeast." Naruto said nothing. He didn't need to. "D-rank mission ends here," Kakashi said. "What happens next is not on your record. Sasuke, Sakura, secure position. Naruto, with me." Naruto fell into step with him immediately, no question, no negotiation, and Kakashi noticed, as they moved off the path and into the tree line, that the boy's footfall pattern had changed. Lighter. More distributed. The specific pattern of weight transfer that reduced noise by routing force through multiple contact points simultaneously. They moved through the trees, and Kakashi was acutely aware that Naruto's movement in this environment was not what it should be. It was better. It was smooth and assured in the way that took most shinobi years of active forest operation to develop, and it was operating at a level that his file said he should not be capable of, and Kakashi was done pretending the file was useful. "How long have you been training?" he asked quietly, moving. "All my life," Naruto said. "With who?" A pause just long enough to be meaningful. "The Hokage helped with some things. The rest is personal." "Personal training since when?" "Since I was 6. Kakashi absorbed this. "The Hokage has been personally supervising a genin's training since he was 6 years old," he said, as if reviewing a document. "Technically I wasn't a genin at 6, Naruto said. "Naruto. Kakashi-sensei." They stopped at the tree line's edge, 40 meters from the missing Nin's position, and Kakashi looked at the scene through the foliage. For adult shinobi, various threat levels, 1 bound civilian courier on the ground, and then looked at Naruto. "I need you to stay back," he said. Naruto looked back at him with those steady blue eyes and said, without heat or argument, "That's not going to work. You're a genin, I can cover the two on the left, Naruto said. You take the two on the right. The courier needs someone cutting her bonds before the one in the center activates whatever seal he has on the restraints. He's been fidgeting with it for about 90 seconds, which means a time limit or a nervous habit. Kakashi stared at him. Which is it? Naruto said. Do we go, or do we wait for the seal to activate? Kakashi looked at the scene. At the seal fidgeting shinobi. He did the calculation in the time available, which was not much time. Go, he said. What happened in the next 90 seconds was something Kakashi would write 3 successive drafts of the mission report about before settling on language that conveyed what he'd observed without requiring him to explain how a 12-year-old genin with substandard academy scores had engaged and neutralized 2 adult missing mean in the time it took Kakashi to handle his own 2. The first thing was the speed. Naruto moved on the word go with a lag that was measured in milliseconds, not tenths of a second, launching from a standstill to full speed in a single motion that suggested a body that didn't have a normal acceleration curve, like the full capability was immediately available, all of it, with no warm-up cost. The first missing mean turned and got a hand up and caught nothing because Naruto was low, below where a person that height should have been, below where a person moving that fast should have been able to be while staying controlled, and the redirect was clean, one hand on the forearm and one on the shoulder, using the man's own weight and momentum with the precise efficiency of someone who didn't need to overpower an opponent because they'd already solved the geometry. The second one threw a kunai and Naruto sidestepped it without looking at it, which was either preternaturally good reflexes or something else, and closed the distance in 2 steps and put the man into the ground with the matter-of-fact certainty of someone performing a familiar task, and then was at the courier with a kunai against her restraints before the second man had finished hitting the dirt. The whole thing took 11 seconds. Kakashi finished with his own targets at 14. He stood in the clearing and looked at Naruto crouching beside the freed courier with his hand on the woman's shoulder asking if she was hurt, and around them the 4 missing mean were immobilized or unconscious and the seal on the restraints was still pulsing and used on the ground. Naruto looked up at Kakashi across the clearing. Told you, he said. Kakashi looked at him for a long moment. When we get back, he said, you and I are having a conversation. I figured, Naruto said. Without the file, Kakashi added. Something shifted in Naruto's expression, not quite relief, but the specific relaxation of attention that had been present and unacknowledged. Like something had been waiting for exactly that sentence. Okay, he said. Yeah. That works. The conversation happened on the roof of Kakashi's apartment building at 9 that evening, because Naruto had said with characteristic bluntness that he didn't want to have it in an official space, and Kakashi had decided this was reasonable, and they sat on the roof edge with their legs hanging over and the village spread below them in lights and noise and the faint smell of cook-fire smoke. Kakashi spoke first. I'm going to tell you what I think I've observed, and you tell me where I'm wrong. Fair, Naruto said. You have physical capabilities well beyond your documented level. Not just training, something structural. Your senses are enhanced significantly beyond standard shinobi development. Your spatial processing and threat assessment are operating at a level that corresponds to experienced active duty jonin, not academy graduates. He paused. And there's something in your chakra that isn't chakra. Naruto was quiet for a moment. Then, where are you wrong? I don't know if I'm wrong about any of it, Kakashi said. I'm asking you. You're not wrong, Naruto said. Kakashi waited. The Hokage knows, Naruto said. Has known since I was 6. He's been managing it. He paused. It's not the Nine Tails. The Nine Tails is also real and also present, but it's not what you felt. What did I feel? Naruto looked out at the village. The lights below them moved and breathed, and the moon, gibbous tonight, 17 days from full, hung over the eastern mountains. Something old, he said. That's still the best description I have. Kakashi sat with this. He was a man who had access to a significant amount of shinobi world history, and he was running the phrase something old, present in the chakra system but not chakra, activated in an Uzumaki bloodline against that database, and one of the results was coming up as a category of pact-based bloodline abilities that the historical record described as myths. "Are you safe?" he asked. Naruto looked at him. "Yes." "Is the village safe from you?" "Yes," Naruto said. "I'm not a weapon. I'm not a threat. I'm a 12-year-old person who wants to be Hokage and likes ramen and is apparently on your team." He paused. "I'm also the most capable person on the team, which Sasuke is going to spend the next several years being annoyed about, and I'm fine with that dynamic." Kakashi sat with all of it for a long moment. "If you're holding information that I need to protect this team," he said carefully, "I need you to give it to me." "If that becomes true," Naruto said, "I will." It's the best I can do right now," Naruto said, and something in his voice had changed slightly, a honesty that was also, just barely, an edge. "There are people who want to use what I am for things I don't want to be used for. The less of that information is in circulation, the better. I trust you." He said it without qualification. "I do. But trust isn't the same as unlimited disclosure." Kakashi looked at the 12-year-old sitting on the edge of his roof with the village below him and the moon above him, talking about information security and the management of classified personal data with the composure of a mission veteran. "All right," he said. "All right?" Naruto seemed slightly surprised by the ease of it. "You're right," Kakashi said simply. "Trust isn't unlimited disclosure. I know that better than most." He looked at the village. "We'll work with what you can give me. And you come to me if that changes." "Yeah," Naruto said. "I will." They sat on the roof in companionable silence for a while, the village moving below them, the moon pulling at the edge of Naruto's awareness with its 17 days from full gravity, and at some point Sakura's voice came from the street below calling Naruto's name in the specific tone of someone who had been sent to find him by Sasuke, who would never admit to having sent someone to find him. Naruto looked down. "I should go." "You should," Kakashi agreed. Naruto stood and dropped off the roof edge, 3 stories, landing below with the sound of a single soft impact, and Kakashi heard him greet Sakura with something cheerful and then the two of them moved off down the street and the sounds faded. Kakashi sat on the roof alone for a while longer. He thought about the file, smooth as a lie. He thought about what he'd felt through the wrist contact. He thought about 11 seconds in a forest clearing and a 12-year-old asking "Do we go?" with the voice of someone who already knew the answer. He thought about Minato Namikaze, who had put his son in this position, and about Kushina Uzumaki, whose bloodline apparently ran deeper than anyone had mapped. He thought about what was going to happen when the world found out. Then he went inside, because thinking about it more tonight wasn't going to change it, and he had a mission report to write a third draft of. Chapter 4, The Moon Over Wave. The mission request came in on a Wednesday, filed under C rank, which was the administrative category the village used when it wanted something to sound manageable. Tazuna the bridge builder was 63 years old, built like a man who had spent those years doing physical work rather than avoiding it, and he smelled. Naruto registered this within 4 seconds of the man entering the mission assignment room, like fear wearing the costume of arrogance. It was a specific combination that Naruto had catalogued over years of watching the village's relationship with itself, the way people who were genuinely frightened often projected the fear outward as bluster, as dismissal, as the particular loud contempt that Tazuna was currently directing at Sakura's hair in Naruto's jacket and the general concept of genin being assigned to protect him. "These are children," Tazuna announced. "Yes," Kakashi said. "Children who graduated from the premier shinobi academy in the elemental nations. Good morning. I need real protection." "You need protection appropriate to a C-rank mission escorting a civilian through low-risk terrain," Kakashi said pleasantly. "That's what you've contracted for. Shall we discuss the route?" Tazuna looked at Naruto for a moment longer than the others. Naruto looked back at him with the calm, even attention that he gave most new people, the read running automatically, cataloging, filing. The fear under the arrogance was real and it was significant, and it was connected to the mission in a way that the C-rank filing was not. "You're hiding something about this job," Naruto said. Everyone looked at him. Tezuna's jaw moved. I don't know what you, the fear, Naruto said. Not of us. Not of the journey. Something already waiting. He wasn't accusing. He was reporting an observation the way a weather instrument reports rain. The escort level you filed for doesn't match the level you actually need. I'm pointing this out because if we get into the field with incomplete information about the threat level, that's worse for everyone. Kakashi was looking at him with the specific quality of attention that Naruto had learned meant you're right and I've noticed but I was going to handle this myself and now you've handled it faster than I planned, which I'm filing for later. Tezuna looked between them, and the arrogance deflated partially, not all the way, the armor wasn't coming off, but one of the plates shifted. It might be a bit more dangerous than standard C rank, he said. Okay, Naruto said. How much more? A pause. Tezuna looked at the floor. There's a man. A shipping magnate. He controls the water routes into the land of waves. He wants the bridge I'm building stopped. If the bridge gets built, his monopoly breaks. And he doesn't, the old man's voice dropped, he doesn't use polite methods. Name? Kakashi asked. Gato, Tezuna said. Gato of Gato Company. Naruto filed this. The fear under the arrogance had just gained a specific address. This upgrades to B rank at minimum, Sakura said, which was the correct administrative observation and which she delivered with the confidence of someone who was learning to back her own conclusions. We'd need to petition, Tezuna started. We'll need authorization for the threat level upgrade, Kakashi said, which means a brief delay while I contact the Hokage's office. He looked at his team. Thoughts? We take it, Naruto said. Sasuke said nothing, which was Sasuke's version of agreement. Sakura looked between them. We don't have B rank clearance. We have provisional clearance for threat escalation during active missions, Naruto said. Which this is, since we've been briefed and the mission is technically active. The formal reclassification is administrative. He looked at Kakashi. Right? Technically correct, Kakashi said. Annoyingly so. I'm a precise person, Naruto said. When I want to be. They left that afternoon. The land of waves was a gray sky country, all water and mist and the specific melancholy of places that had been beautiful once and were beautiful still but couldn't quite afford to be happy about it. They took a boat from the shore after the land route ended, crossing the water in the early morning fog with Tezuna at the rudder and the four of them distributed across the boat in the unconscious formation they'd been developing over 3 weeks of missions, Kakashi at the bow, Sasuke starboard, Sakura port, Naruto at the stern facing backward because facing backward meant he could watch everything behind them, which he'd decided on the first boat journey he'd ever taken was clearly the correct allocation of attention. 2 hours out, the mist was thick enough that visibility was under 30 meters. Naruto heard them at 45. Not the sound of movement, water muffled most of that. The smell. The specific combination of steel and chakra charge and the underneath smell of 2 people who had been very still for a long time and were about to not be still. It hit him like a hand against the chest, sharp and immediate, and he was on his feet before the analysis fully completed. Left, he said. Kakashi was already moving. Sasuke was already moving. Sakura put herself in front of Tezuna with a kunai out and the expression of someone who was not going to move from this position regardless of what came at her, which Naruto noted and put in the positive column as he turned to the water. The 2 figures came out of the mist low and fast, demon brothers, he'd hear the name later, but in the moment they were just geometry and threat and the water chains came first, linking toward Kakashi, and Naruto was doing 2 things simultaneously, watching the second one break left toward Tezuna and calculating the angle. He stepped off the boat. Onto the water. He'd been practicing water-walking chakra technique for 4 months and it worked, mostly, which meant he was stable enough to move on the surface at speed. He crossed the distance to the second attacker in 3 seconds, coming from the man's blind side, and the water chains weren't aimed at him so he was inside the weapon's range before the adjustment could be made, and the exchange was brief and physical and ended with the second attacker face down against the water surface with both arms pinned behind him. Kakashi had the first one. It was quiet. The mist drifted. The boat rocked gently. Sakura stood with her kunai still up and her eyes tracking, and Tazuna had gone a color that suggested he was reconsidering several recent life choices. Naruto kept the second attacker pinned and looked up at Kakashi through the mist. "These aren't C-rank contractors," he said. "No," Kakashi agreed. "They're Chunin level at minimum. Gato isn't using local muscle." "No," Kakashi said again. He was looking at the chained attacker with the expression that meant he was extracting information. "He's using Zabuza Momochi." Silence. Tazuna made a sound. "The demon of the mist," Sasuke said. He said it with the flat tone he used for information he was filing, but his hands were slightly more still than usual, which was Sasuke's version of a reaction. "Former Mist Village Assassination Corps," Naruto said. He'd read the bingo book cover to cover at age 10. Twice. 7 swordsmen adjacent. Missing Nin. High profile. He looked at Kakashi. "He's not coming himself for a bridge builder. He was hired by Gato," Kakashi confirmed. "Yes." Naruto let the attacker go and stepped back to the boat. "So this isn't B rank either," he said. "No," Kakashi said. "Great." Naruto sat back down at the stern. "Are we continuing?" Kakashi looked at the team. Sasuke's expression said yes. Sakura's expression said yes with conditions. Tazuna was looking at Naruto with an expression that had shed most of the arrogance and was left with something that looked a lot like the first layer of actual respect. "We continue," Kakashi said. Naruto nodded and faced backward again and watched the mist. They reached shore an hour later and moved inland through the forest toward Tazuna's house, and the encounter with Zabuza happened on the third day. By then Naruto had mapped the forest in the way he did with any new terrain, a continuous passive accumulation of information, the wolf spatial sense building a model that was always running in the background. He knew where the animal paths crossed the human ones, he knew which trees were hollow, he knew the water table was 6 feet down through most of the forest and came up to 3 in the northern section where the ground softened. He knew this without deciding to know it, the same way he knew the sound of Tazuna's granddaughter on the path before she came around the corner, the same way he knew there were very good hiding positions on the far side of the lake they were skirting. He knew Zabuza was there before the mist appeared. The chakra signature was enormous, not Ninetales enormous, but the largest human chakra Naruto had directly encountered, and it was cold in a specific way that was not temperature but character. Large, cold, precise. The kind of signature that belonged to someone who had spent years thinking of themselves as an instrument. "He's at the lake," Naruto said quietly, drawing up alongside Kakashi. "North side. About 60 meters. Kakashi's eye crinkled slightly. "Since when?" "Since we cleared the ridge. He's been tracking us." A pause. "He's good. The killing intent is very controlled. I nearly missed the approach." "Nearly," Kakashi said. "Nearly," Naruto confirmed. Then the mist came and it was different from the natural mist of the morning, thicker, deliberate, chakra-threaded, a tool rather than weather. The silent killing mist. The world went white and close, and visibility dropped to 5 meters, and Zabuza's voice came out of it with the flat professional quality of someone who killed people as work rather than as passion and had made peace with the distinction years ago. Sharingan Kakashi. "What a waste of a Jonin." "Zabuza," Kakashi said. "You look well." "I look like I'm about to kill you." "Is that well?" "You look prepared," Kakashi said. "I'll grant prepared." Naruto had stopped listening to the verbal exchange because it was mostly positioning, two professionals establishing relative status before engagement, the human equivalent of circling, and was instead doing what the mist made difficult for everyone except him. He was listening. The mist was Zabuza's element, designed to reduce sighted opponents to the information available to their ears. The problem, Zabuza's problem, specific and significant, was that Naruto's ears were better than the technique had been designed to account for. He had Zabuza's position continuously. Every breath, every shift of weight, every micro-movement of the Kubikurabocho soared through the air as Zabuza oriented it. He built the geometry of the man's movement like a map, updating in real time. He moved off the path without a sound. Sasuke, to his credit, clocked the movement. Naruto felt the Uchiha's attention follow him and held up 2 fingers, wait, and Sasuke stilled. They'd developed roughly 6 gesture signals in 3 weeks of missions, and this was one of them, which said something about how they were building towards something that might eventually become genuine coordination. Naruto circled wide, using the mist for the same cover Zabuza was using it for, moving to the sword side flank where the Kubikurabocho's length would restrict fast reorientation. Zabuza was engaged with Kakashi, full attention, professional focus, the combat lock of 2 people who had correctly identified each other as the primary threat, and Naruto came in from the angle. He didn't go for the kill. He never went for the kill when non-lethal was achievable. Not because he was soft, but because killing was permanent and information was valuable, and the strategic cost-benefit almost always favored restraint when you had the advantage. He went for the sword arm, and the contact was 6 seconds, and at the end of them the Kubikurabocho was 3 meters away on the ground and Zabuza was on one knee with Naruto's hand on his wrist and a kunai at the junction of his sword arm and his shoulder. Everything stopped. Kakashi was 10 feet away, Chidori no longer active, looking at Naruto with both eyes visible over his mask and an expression that was readable even at that distance as genuine surprise, which was not an expression Kakashi wore often. Zabuza turned his head slowly, with the specific controlled movement of someone who was furious and was managing it because being furious right now would be tactically poor. He looked at Naruto, really looked, the long professional assessment of someone recategorizing threat information. "You're a child," Zabuza said. 12, Naruto agreed. "Can we talk about the job?" A pause. "The job. You were hired by Gato," Naruto said. "Gato contracts people and doesn't pay them. He uses them and then has them killed when they've served their purpose. It's his standard operational pattern. There are 8 documented cases in the last 4 years." He'd read the relevant commerce intelligence files in the Hokage's library 18 months ago, which was not technically a public resource but had technically been accessible through a window that was technically not fully latched. "Are you being paid in installments or on completion?" Zabuza stared at him. "Because if it's on completion," Naruto continued, "you should know that Gato has never made a completion payment. Not once. In 4 years. The only reason you'd be alive after this job ends is if you can get to him before his personal guard, which numbers 12 and includes at least 2 Jonin-level contractors." A very long silence. "Let me up," Zabuza said. "Will you take the sword? Will it matter if I say no?" "Yes," Naruto said. "I take you at your word unless you give me a reason not to." Zabuza looked at him with an expression that was doing several things at once, and one of them, brief, almost imperceptible, but Naruto caught it, was something adjacent to being caught off guard. "I won't take the sword," Zabuza said. Naruto stepped back and let him up. Kakashi said, very quietly, "Naruto. The mission is to get Tazuna to the bridge and protect him," Naruto said. "Fighting Zabuza doesn't accomplish that. Giving him accurate information about his employer might." He looked at Zabuza. "If Gato is removed from the equation, what happens to your contract?" "It terminates," Zabuza said. "Then we have a mutual interest in Gato being removed from the equation." Sasuke had emerged from the mist at some point during this exchange and was standing 6 feet to Naruto's left, and his expression was the one Naruto had started thinking of as the recalibration expression, the one that said something had happened that was revising the available data. Zabuza picked up the Kubikurabocho with a deliberate, unhurried movement that communicated something between respect and threat, the specific language of dangerous people indicating that they are choosing, in this moment, not to be dangerous. "I'll think about what you said," Zabuza said. "That's all I'm asking," Naruto said. Zabuza melted back into the mist with the complete, practiced vanishing of someone who had spent a career disappearing, and the mist thinned and the lake reappeared and the four of them stood in the resumed sunlight with the sounds of the forest reasserting themselves. Kakashi looked at Naruto for a long moment. "How did you know about Gato's payment history?" he asked. "Library," Naruto said. "The public library doesn't have commerce intelligence files." "No," Naruto agreed. "It doesn't." He walked back toward the path to find Tazuna, and behind him the silence stretched, and Kakashi and Sasuke exchanged a look across it, and Sasuke's look said I told you he was hiding something and Kakashi's look said yes, I know, I'm working on it. Tazuna's house was warm and full of the specific domestic texture of a family under pressure. His daughter Tsunami cooked with the efficiency of someone who had been managing fear alongside practical tasks for long enough that they'd merged, and his grandson Inari had the eyes of a child who had decided the world didn't deserve his hope and was holding the decision like a shield. Naruto looked at Inari across the dinner table and recognized the expression with the immediate accuracy of someone who had worn it for 6 years. "It's easier," Naruto said, "during the second dinner, when you stop trying to protect yourself from caring." Inari looked at him. "What?" "The thing you're doing," Naruto said. "Where you decide nothing is worth hoping for because hoping means you can be hurt. It's easier short term." The table went quiet. Tsunami looked at Naruto with a complicated expression. Tazuna had been in the process of pouring a drink and had paused. "You don't know anything about it," Inari said. "I know a lot about it," Naruto said, without heat, without drama. "I did it for about 2 years. Ages 6 and 7, approximately. I decided that since nobody in the village was going to look at me without deciding I was a problem, I'd just be a problem deliberately. Save everyone the discovery period." He picked up his chopsticks. It didn't help. Inari's jaw was set. "It's not the same, people you cared about were hurt or killed," Naruto said. "The world showed you it was dangerous to love things. So you stopped publicly loving things, because if you don't publicly love things then losing them hurts less." He tilted his head. "How's that working?" Inari stared at him. "I'm not making fun of you," Naruto said. "I'm genuinely asking. Because from my experience, the hurt is the same whether you loved publicly or privately. The only difference is whether other people got to see the good parts too." The table was still quiet. Sasuke, directly across from Naruto, was looking at his bowl with the focused attention of someone who was listening very carefully and processing something personal and not prepared to show any of that on his face. Inari pushed his chair back and left the table, which was the expected response, and Naruto let him go and continued eating, and eventually the table found its way back to conversation. Later, when the house had gone to night sounds and everyone else was asleep, Naruto went outside and sat on the dock above the water and let the wolf out to its evening temperature, that half-depth state, the senses dialed up, the warm current running. The moon was waxing. 6 days from full. He could feel it pulling like a tide, not uncomfortable, just present, the way the moon was always present when you knew how to feel for it. He heard the footstep when it was still 15 meters away. "Sasuke," he said. The footsteps didn't pause. Sasuke came and sat on the dock beside him with the careful, deliberate movement of someone who had decided to do something and was not going to perform the decision. "What you said at dinner," Sasuke said. "What about it?" "You were talking about yourself." "Yes. But you were also," a pause. The water moved below them. "You've been watching me for 2 years, Sasuke said." "You said that. In the training field." "I have," Naruto said. "Why?" Naruto thought about this honestly. "Because you're the most interesting person in the room, most of the time. And because," he paused, "you're carrying something you're going to break yourself on if you carry it the way you're carrying it. I don't want that to happen." Sasuke was quiet for a long time. The water moved and the moon hung above the mist of the channel, and somewhere in the night forest something moved and Naruto tracked it automatically and filed it as harmless. "The person I'm going to kill," Sasuke said. "Not if." When? I know, Naruto said. When that happens, Naruto said, I'll still be here. However it goes. Sasuke looked at him. This close, in the dark, his face was young in the way his face usually wasn't, not young like a child but young like someone who had been wearing armor so long they'd forgotten what it was for and had just briefly taken it off. Why? He asked. Because I said so, Naruto said. And I don't say things I don't mean. A long moment. Then Sasuke looked back at the water. The thing in your chakra, he said. Don't, Naruto said. Not harshly. Just a limit, clean and simple. I'm not asking what it is, Sasuke said. I'm noting that I've felt it for 3 weeks and it's never felt like a threat. I'm noting that in the forest, in the mist, when Zabuza was there, the temperature of it changed. It got warm. He paused. I don't know what that means. I'm just noting it. Naruto looked at him. Thank you, he said. Sasuke nodded once, which was Sasuke's version of you're welcome and I don't know how to do this and I'm trying all at once. They sat on the dock for another hour and talked about nothing in particular, training, the mission, whether Sakura's genjutsu progression was as fast as she thought it was. Naruto, yes. Sasuke, grudgingly yes. And the moon pulled at the tide and at the wolf, and Naruto sat in the good company of it and thought that things were going somewhere, and that somewhere, for once, felt like forward. The full moon arrived on the 5th night, which was 2 days before the bridge operation. Naruto woke at midnight with the wolf fully awake and urgent, the transformation pressure higher than usual, travel, new terrain, a different quality of moon through the island country air, and the accumulated tension of a threat-active mission adding its edge to the biological certainty of the cycle. He lay on the floor of the room he was sharing with Sasuke and Kakashi, and he controlled it for approximately 90 seconds, and then he got up very quietly and went outside. He made it to the forest edge before it came through. Not the full form, he was practiced enough now at the half-depth that the full transformation only hit when he stopped managing it entirely, which he did sometimes in Field 7 deliberately, because the full form had its own value, its own completeness, and refusing it entirely would have been a kind of dishonesty with himself. Tonight was not that night. Tonight the forest was new and the team was sleeping 40 meters behind him and he managed it to the half-depth and let it run there, pacing the tree line with his senses wide open. He heard the approach at 300 meters. A single person. Light step. Moving through the forest with the trained quiet that was different from the wolf's quiet, it was suppressed rather than natural, which meant a shinobi, and the chakra signature when it got close enough was smaller than Zabuza's but sharper, and young. The person emerged from the tree line 6 meters away and stopped. A mask, porcelain white, painted with thin lines like cracked ice. Behind the mask, the chakra was young, genuinely young, close to Naruto's own age, and the temperature of it was the specific quality of someone who had been trained for precise, clean efficiency and had complicated feelings about that. Haku, Naruto said. The masked figure was still for a moment. How did you know my name? Zabuza mentioned you. Implicitly. He sat down cross-legged at the base of the nearest tree, which was a deliberate choice. Sitting down was a de-escalation signal, and he wanted this to be a conversation. You're the one he'd trust to scout us. Haku looked at him for a long time. Then sat down against a tree across the small clearing. You spoke to Zabuza-san about Gato, Haku said. Yes. He was angry. A pause. And then not angry. That combination is unusual for him. I gave him accurate information, Naruto said. He could do what he wanted with it. Haku's hands were in his lap, loose, which meant he'd made the same calculation Naruto had about the register of this meeting. What do you want from us? Nothing, Naruto said. I want you to live. He said it simply, the way he said most things that were true and direct. Both of you. Gato is going to get you both killed if this continues the way it's going. We know, Haku said. And then, more quietly, we've known for a while. Then why, Zabuza-san has a goal, Haku said. It requires money. Gato was the path to the money. He paused. And I follow Zabuza-san. Because you choose to or because you feel like you have to? The question landed differently than Haku had expected. Naruto saw it in the slight backward lean, the pause before the answer. Both, Haku said honestly. He saved my life when I was younger. He found a use for something that had been nothing but a danger to me before. Your bloodline, Naruto said. Another pause. You're perceptive. I know what it is to have something in you that the world has decided is a danger, Naruto said. I know what it is to have someone find it useful instead. He looked at Haku. But useful isn't the same as valued. Those are different things. Do you know the difference? Haku was quiet for a long time. The forest moved around them, and the moon was full and white through the canopy, and Naruto let the wolf run warm through him and didn't hide it, and he saw the moment when Haku sensed it, when the quality of what they were sitting across from registered, and the specific careful stillness became something else. What are you? Haku asked. Quietly. Not frightened. Curious. Something old, Naruto said, which was the answer he always gave, which was still the truest one. Like your bloodline is something old. Just, different. Ice and wolf, Haku said. Ice and wolf, Naruto agreed. They sat in the moonlit clearing for a while longer, two young people from the wrong end of the world's priorities, and by the time Haku stood to leave something had shifted in the air between them, not an alliance exactly, but the specific mutual recognition of two things that were outside the standard categories acknowledging each other. I'll tell Zabuza-san what you said, Haku said. About the difference. That's all I'm asking, Naruto said. Haku slipped back into the trees with the particular vanishing quality that was different from Zabuza's, less raw power, more like dissolving, and Naruto sat with the moon and the wolf and the quiet forest, and thought about useful versus valued, and thought about Irika, and the ramen, and Kakashi saying trust isn't unlimited disclosure like he'd been waiting to hear exactly that. He went back inside before dawn and lay down on his bedroll and looked at the ceiling, and Sasuke, who was awake and had been awake for a while based on his breathing pattern, said nothing, which was Sasuke's version of I know you were out there and I'm giving you the space to tell me in your own time. Training in the morning? Naruto asked. Obviously, Sasuke said. Race you to the tree line. You'll win. Yeah, Naruto said. I will. You should race me anyway. A pause. Fine. The bridge. They'd known it was coming. Zabuza would have to move before the bridge was completed, because a completed bridge meant the end of Gato's leverage and therefore the end of Zabuza's contract and any chance of payment. The when was the variable. The where was not. They were 2 spans from completion when the mist came off the water. Naruto felt Zabuza and Haku arrive simultaneously, one massive cold signature, one smaller sharp one, and he felt something else with them, tension, the specific kind that lives in the space between what people are doing and what they believe, which is the most dangerous kind of tension because it makes behavior unpredictable. The fight was fast. Everything was fast, now. There was no version of Naruto on a battlefield that moved at the speed the world expected from him, and he'd long since stopped calibrating to that expectation. He went for Haku. Not to hurt. The geometry of it was clear to him before anyone moved. Kakashi would engage Zabuza because they were matched at the level where anyone else would be in the way, Sasuke and Sakura would protect Tazuna and the workers, and Haku would be Zabuza's tactical support. Removing Haku from Zabuza's operational equation was the cleanest path to the fastest resolution. But removing didn't mean hurting, and the distinction mattered. Haku moved like ice, literally, the ice release Kekkei Genkai manifesting in mirrors that appeared from water vapor, the fight becoming three-dimensional and reflective, and Naruto moved through it with his senses doing the work that eyes couldn't in a space that had no consistent directionality. He tracked Haku by sound and scent and the faint thermal differential of a living body against ice, and when Haku's needles came through the mirrors they were a half-second behind where Naruto was. You're fast, Haku said from inside the ice, and his voice had the quality of someone genuinely reporting an observation. I can't track you. I know, Naruto said. I'm supposed to be the fastest. You're very fast, Naruto said, moving between mirror positions with the specific, unhurried speed that didn't look fast until it was already done. You're the fastest human I've fought. You haven't fought many. No, Naruto agreed. But I can tell the difference. The ice mirrors cracked and reformed as Haku redirected, and through the battlefield noise Naruto could hear Kakashi and Zabuza, the two enormous chakras clashing with the specific sound of forces meeting their equivalent, and he could hear Sasuke's fire and Sakura's voice organizing the workers, and below all of it something else, the sound of additional arrivals, coming from the mainland side, the direction of Gado's compound. Haku, Naruto said. Gado is coming. The ice mirrors went still. He's bringing armed men, Naruto continued. At least 40. He's using this fight as cover to eliminate Zabuza personally. He was never going to pay. Through the ice he could see Haku's form, frozen in the specific stillness of someone receiving information they had been afraid to receive. How do you know? I can hear them on the bridge approach, Naruto said. 42 footsteps, minimum. Armed, moving fast. The ice mirrors dissolved. Haku stood in front of him, mask off, and his face was young and certain and resolved in the way that people look when they've been carrying a painful truth and have finally let themselves put it down. We have to warn Zabuza-san. Yes, Naruto said. Go. Haku went, and Naruto was 3 steps behind him, because the bridge had gotten significantly more complicated in the last 60 seconds and staying mobile was better than having a plan. What followed was 10 minutes of controlled chaos. Zabuza's response to Gado's betrayal was, as Naruto had privately estimated, significant and immediate and entirely without mercy. Gado's hired army found that what they had arrived to clean up was not clean, and Zabuza with a reason to be angry was a different quantity than Zabuza working a professional contract, and the combination of that and Kakashi and Naruto operating simultaneously cleared the bridge with an efficiency that Tazuna would describe to people for the rest of his life in terms that got more elaborate with each retelling. Zabuza was wounded. Significantly. The fighting had cost him, and at the end of it he was on his knees on the bridge with Haku beside him and the wolf walking slow circuits of Naruto's chest. Naruto stood 6 feet away and watched the two of them, and what he saw was the thing he tried to name for Haku in the forest 3 nights ago. The difference between useful and valued, Zabuza's face, looking at Haku, had the specific expression of someone who had never learned to value what he had until the moment he was looking at losing it. It wasn't his place to say anything. Some things needed the space they needed. Kakashi stood beside Naruto and they were both quiet, and the mist moved over the water, and the bridge rose behind them half-finished and already meaning something, and Inari was there, Inari with half the village, who had come because something had been said on a dock 3 nights ago by a 12-year-old who understood about deciding things were worth hoping for. The boy looked at Naruto from across the bridge. Naruto looked back. No words. Just the acknowledgement, the kind that passes between people who have shared an understanding and both know it. They left the land of waves 4 days later, the morning the final span of the bridge was laid. Tazuna walked them to the shore, and at the water's edge he stopped and looked at Naruto with the fully shed arrogance, the old man underneath it standing plain in the morning light. My apologies, Tazuna said. For how I spoke to you when we met. It's fine, Naruto said. It's not, Tazuna said. I decided what you were before I looked. You told me that was a thing you disliked. You were right to dislike it. Naruto looked at the old man and found, not for the first time in his life, that being seen accurately was a complicated experience, not bad, not simple, something that moved through him with the warmth of the wolf and the particular ache of something that had been waiting to be recognized. Thank you, he said. The bridge, Tazuna said, is going to be named. We've been talking about what to call it. The Wave Bridge, Naruto suggested. Tazuna shook his head. We thought we'd name it after someone. Someone who looked at us and told us we were worth hoping for. He looked at Naruto steadily. Unless you have objections to Great Naruto Bridge. The team went quiet. Kakashi's eye crinkled. Naruto opened his mouth, found it empty, closed it. He was 12 years old and he had two things in his chest that the world didn't have categories for, and he was standing on a shore in a gray sky country with his team behind him and a bridge being named for him behind him, and the wolf was warm and steady and the morning was clear, and he found that he had no objections. No objections, he said. They boarded the boat. Naruto sat at the stern, facing backward, watching the shore recede, and the mist came in off the water, and the bridge grew smaller and smaller until it was just a shape in the gray, a thing being built, a connection between places that had been separate, and then it was gone. He faced forward. Chapter 5. What Danzo knows. The Chunin exams registration forms were single-page documents with 12 fields, and the last field, the one most teams filled in with one of three standard declarations, read, additional information relevant to competitive assessment. Naruto left his blank. Not because he had nothing to put there. Because the space was too small. They filed the paperwork on a Tuesday in the mission assignment room, the three of them shoulder to shoulder in front of the desk clerk who processed registration with the particular exhausted efficiency of a man who had been doing this for 11 years and had long since stopped finding it interesting. Sakura had prepared their forms in advance, because Sakura prepared things in advance as a personality trait, and Sasuke signed his with the clean, minimal stroke of someone who had decided that how you held a pen was also a statement. Naruto signed his and put the pen down and looked at the form with the specific quality of attention he brought to things he was about to commit to, the full assessment, nothing withheld from himself, and then slid it across the desk. "You're sure about this?" Sakura said. She wasn't asking whether they should enter. They'd agreed on that. She was asking something more specific. "I'm sure," Naruto said. "The exam is going to put you in situations where, I know," he said. "Where your capabilities are going to be visible to a lot of people. Jonin. Examiners. Other villages. I know that too," he said. She looked at him with the particular expression she'd been developing over 2 months of being on this team, the one that had replaced her initial categories for him with something more accurate and was still in the process of calibration. "You're not going to pull any punches, are you?" "No," he said. "Even if, Sakura." He turned to look at her. "I've spent 6 years being exactly as small as people expected me to be, in exactly the ways they expected it, so they'd stop looking. I'm done with that. If someone wants to know what I am," he picked up his jacket from the back of the chair, "they can watch me." She was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded, once, with the specific decisiveness of someone who has measured a thing and found it acceptable. Sasuke was already at the door. The exam began on a Thursday with the written test, which was designed, everyone knew, the design was not subtle, to be impossible. The questions were Jonin-level intelligence assessments, the kind that required either years of active field experience or a specific willingness to accept that the test was not about the answers. Naruto read his question sheet once and put it face down and spent the next 40 minutes listening to the room. He was at a table in the middle of the exam hall, which seated approximately 60 candidates from 6 different villages, and the hall was saturated with the information of 60 nervous people in an enclosed space, breath patterns, chakra fluctuations, the specific acoustic signature of chakra-assisted perception being used to share answers, which was detectable if you knew what to listen for. He mapped the room in the first 20 minutes. Not to cheat. To understand the space and everyone in it. The proctor, a Chunin named Ibiki Marino, who had the face of a man who had made hard choices and kept the receipts, walked the aisles with the unhurried patience of someone conducting a process he had complete confidence in. His killing intent was deployed like a precision tool, directed, modulated, watching for exactly the reactions it was designed to produce. Naruto felt it land on him twice during the examination period and both times absorbed it with the comfort of someone who had sat across from the Third Hokage's mild disapproval and Danzo Shimura's inventory gaze and a missing nin of Zabuza Momochi's caliber in the last 2 months. Ibiki's killing intent was significant and professionally executed, and it registered in Naruto's threat hierarchy at a respectful distance below things that had actually tried to hurt him. He wrote nothing on his answer sheet for the first 9 questions and spent his time building a complete acoustic model of cheating patterns in the room, which he could have reported and chose not to because reporting it wasn't the point. Understanding it was. The 10th question arrived as a verbal option. Ibiki stood at the front of the room and delivered it as a choice: take question 10 and risk disqualification if you answered wrong, or stand up and forfeit, pass the exam but forfeit your team. Naruto turned his answer sheet over and watched the room process it. 12 people stood. Then more. The thinning of the room was gradual and then faster, the quitters' momentum building, and Naruto sat still while it happened and watched Sasuke's shoulders from 2 rows up, tense, controlled, not moving, and Sakura's hands flat on the desk, pressed down, deliberate. He looked at the question. What does a true shinobi need to survive not just physically, but operationally, in any engagement? He read it twice. Then he wrote 2 words. Accurate information. He put the pen down. Hands up, Ibiki said. Who refuses question 10? Nobody moved. The room had held. Every remaining team. Ibiki's expression did the specific thing it did when it confirmed a hypothesis, and he told them they'd all passed, and the window exploded and a kunoichi with platinum hair and a cigarette descended on a purple banner and announced the second exam with the cheerful energy of someone who enjoyed being underestimated and was not going to stop. Naruto read Mitarashi Enko in approximately 3 seconds, loud, precise, deliberately performative, the kind of competence that wore its extroversion as armor. He filed her in the positive column and paid attention. The forest of death, she said. He felt the smile come before he stopped it. The forest of death was 44 square kilometers of dense, mission-graded terrain with indigenous fauna that included things that had made the standard Chunin training roster nervous for decades. It was, from his perspective, close to optimal. He looked at the forest through the hall window with the specific appetite of someone who was about to be in their element. The scroll exchange format was familiar from briefing documents: Heaven and Earth scrolls, 1 per team, navigate to the central tower in 5 days, and the forest gate was 40 meters wide and opened into the kind of darkness that swallowed light at the first tree line. Naruto stood at the gate with Sasuke and Sakura on either side and breathed the forest Indiana. It was extraordinary. 6 different apex predator scents layered over the base note of old growth and water and the specific mineral quality of soil that had been killing and growing things for decades without human interference. The canopy was high enough that the sky was visible only in fragments, and the shadows between the trees had the particular quality of spaces that were genuinely indifferent to human presence. 5 days, Sakura said. Less, Naruto said. The objective requires, we won't need 5 days, he said. He wasn't performing confidence. He was reporting an estimate. I can navigate this terrain in a day if we move efficiently. Less if we locate a team with the scroll we need quickly. Sasuke looked at him. You can navigate 44 square kilometers of unmapped forest in a day. It's not unmapped, Naruto said. I've been mapping it since we got here. He tapped his temple. Sound, scent, the airflow patterns around the tree gaps. I have a rough topology of approximately the first 6 kilometers from this gate, and I can refine as we move. A pause. That's, Sakura started. Efficient, Naruto suggested. I was going to say alarming. It's efficient, he said. Are we going? They went. The first team they encountered were Grass Nin, 3 of them, moving with the coordinated quiet of experienced candidates who had done their prep work. Naruto identified them at 240 meters and redirected his team without breaking stride, because the Grass team had the Earth Scroll and Naruto's team had the Earth Scroll, and fighting for a scroll you couldn't use was bad arithmetic. The second team were Rain Nin, who had the Heaven Scroll, and the encounter was brief. Naruto appeared from their left flank while Sasuke engaged from the front, and the Rain team's tactical structure dissolved in under 30 seconds because Naruto was inside their formation before they'd finished registering that he was moving. No one was seriously hurt. He was precise about that, always. The scroll went to Sakura, who tucked it with the focused satisfaction of someone checking an item off a list she'd been managing since before the exam started. They were 3 kilometers from the central tower, moving through the midsection of the forest where the undergrowth grew into cathedral dimensions and the light came sideways through gaps in the canopy, when Naruto stopped. Not the same stop as the boat. This was slower, more deliberate. His hand came up, halt, and the team stilled with the practiced immediacy of 2 people who had learned that when Naruto went quiet, the reason was worth waiting for. He stood and listened. The sound was wrong. Not the forest's wrong, the forest had its own wrongness, its constant predatory ambience, but human wrong, the specific quality of displaced air and suppressed chakra that meant concealment technique, and the concealment was good. Very good. Better than the other teams. And underneath the concealment, a signature so large and cold and distinctive that Naruto had been tracking it in his peripheral awareness since the gate. He followed us in, Naruto said quietly. Who? Sakura asked. Before Naruto could answer, the forest simply rearranged itself. The tree in front of them wasn't a tree, it revealed itself as the absence of a tree, a negative space that had been occupied, and in the occupied space stood a man in the clothing of a Grasnine examiner with his hands folded and his eyes amber and half-lidded, and a quality about him that was the specific dangerous quality of something that had shed its constraints so gradually that it no longer remembered what constrained it looked like. Naruto looked at Orochimaru. Orochimaru looked back at him, and the amber eyes moved with the slow, assessing quality of something that was used to being the most interesting thing in any space and was having an unusual experience. The Jinchuriki, Orochimaru said. His voice was precisely modulated, every syllable placed with the care of someone who understood that voice was an instrument and had been playing it for a long time. Naruto Uzumaki. He let the name sit in the air for a moment. I've been curious about you. I know, Naruto said. A slight pause. You know. You've been in the forest for 3 days, Naruto said. I picked up your signature at the gate. It's not subtle, once you know what to feel for. The chakra is enormous and old and, he tilted his head slightly, hungry. Like something that keeps eating and can't get full. Orochimaru was still for a moment. Then the corners of his mouth moved in the specific way of someone recalculating. Interesting, he said. You're after Sasuke, Naruto said. Am I? Yes. Whatever you want from him, the Sharingan, the body, both, something else, you've been positioning toward him since the exam was announced. Probably before. He kept his voice level. That's not going to happen. Orochimaru's gaze moved to Sasuke, who had a kunai in each hand and an expression that was entirely focused and entirely cold. Then back to Naruto. And you're going to prevent it, Orochimaru said. Yes, Naruto said. You're 12 years old. You keep saying that to me in that tone, Naruto said. Like it means something. Like 12 years old is a fixed quantity. He took one step forward, and the wolf woke up in his chest with the full warm surge of something that had been waiting for permission, and Naruto let it, not the transformation, but the presence, the full weight of what he carried let to show in the air around him for the first time in front of someone who wasn't Hiruzen or Kakashi or his team. How old was the first person to carry what I'm carrying? How old were they when they made the pact? The forest went quiet in the specific way it went quiet when something large shifted in the ecosystem. Orochimaru was still. Still in a way he hadn't been before, not the calculated stillness of someone choosing patience, but the involuntary stillness of something that had registered a threat and was evaluating it. His amber eyes dropped to Naruto's chest level, where the wolf's presence was sitting like a warm coal burning through a paper lantern, visible as heat rather than light. What? Orochimaru said, and it was not the smooth rhetorical delivery of before. It was an actual question, stripped of the performance. Something old, Naruto said. Same as you, except the opposite direction. He held the man's gaze. You've been eating yourself hollow looking for immortality. What I have has been in a bloodline for longer than the shinobi system has existed. You can't have it, you can't synthesize it, you can't take it, and it's not interested in you. A very long silence. In the silence, Naruto felt Sasuke at his left shoulder, one step closer than he'd been, the Sharingan active and red in the green forest dark, and he felt Sakura at his right, and this too, the specific geometry of the three of them, standing towards something together, was a kind of warmth. Orochimaru looked at the three of them. Then he smiled, and it was not the serpentine social performance of before but something more genuine, more private, the smile of someone encountering novelty in a world they believed they'd catalogued completely. Another time, he said. No, Naruto said. The smile stayed. No. If you come at Sasuke again, I'll be between you, Naruto said. That's a permanent condition, not a temporary one. Another time or any time, same answer. Orochimaru looked at him for one more long moment. The world, he said softly, is going to find you very interesting, Naruto Uzumaki. I know, Naruto said. Orochimaru dissolved into the forest in the particular way of someone who moved like they'd invented moving, not a retreat, or reclassification. He had come for one thing and found another, and the other required processing. The forest noise came back. Bird. Wind. The distant sound of another team's fire technique 3 kilometers east. Sakura exhaled. Sasuke deactivated the Sharingan. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said, directed forward rather than at either of them, you didn't have to do that. I know, Naruto said. I could have, Sasuke. He turned to look at him. I know you could have. I know what you're capable of. He paused. I was standing there because I wanted to. Not because I thought you needed saving. There's a difference. He looked at Sasuke until the Uchiha met his eyes. Understand the difference. Something moved through Sasuke's expression. The armor up, the armor adjusting, not coming all the way down but shifting, making room for something. Fine, Sasuke said. Good. Naruto pointed east. Towers that direction. Let's go. The route operative found him on day 3. Not in the forest. Naruto was in the central tower's rest area, one of the small rooms assigned to cleared teams while they waited for the exam's second phase, and the rest of the building was quiet with the specific quality of a facility running on a skeleton crew at 2 in the morning. He heard the footstep at the window, 3rd floor, exterior ledge, the breath pattern of someone who had climbed rather than jumped, which was a deliberate choice to minimize chakra signature, and he was sitting up on his bedroll before the window opened. The operative was good. Male, mid-20s, route trained. The mask was plain white with one horizontal line. He held a sealed document case. Uzumaki Naruto, the operative said quietly. Yes, Naruto said. I have a message from Danzo-sama. You can put it down, Naruto said, nodding at the floor between them. The operative set the case down with the practiced care of someone who had been told not to make contact. Good. Naruto picked it up and broke the seal, Danzo's personal chakra signature, strong and distinctive, and read the single page inside. It was not a threat. That was the first thing. It was not a demand, exactly. It was framed as an offer, which was how Danzo always framed things that were not offers, dressed in the language of opportunity and national interest and the specific patriotic vocabulary of a man who had decided long ago that Konoha was an abstraction worth protecting at whatever specific human cost was required. The message said, in summary, your abilities represent a unique asset. Root is prepared to provide the environment in which those abilities can be properly developed and deployed. Come voluntarily and retain autonomy within the organization structure. Refuse and exist within the limitations the Third Hokage's protective policy creates. Naruto read it twice. Then he looked at the operative. Does he know? He asked. Not what. The operative would understand which what. A pause. Danzo-sama has extensive information about your capabilities. That's not what I asked, Naruto said. Another pause. Longer. The operative's breathing was controlled but not entirely, and Naruto read the microvariation and had his answer. He doesn't know the full scope, Naruto said. He knows about the nine tails. He knows I'm physically enhanced. He doesn't know the other thing. The operative said nothing, which was confirmation. Naruto folded the message carefully and put it back in the case. He picked up a pen from his equipment bag and wrote 4 words on the back of the page, resealed the case, and held it out. The operative took it. "Tell Danzo-san I said no," Naruto said. The 4 words elaborate on the no. He'll understand them. The operative looked at the case. Back at Naruto. He won't accept, he will, Naruto said. Not because he wants to. Because the 4 words tell him that I know something about him that makes accepting my no the strategically correct choice. He paused. He's a smart man. He'll understand. What he'd written, the Sigma file exists. He'd found the reference in Hiruzen's office 4 years ago, in a note that the Hokage had left out by accident, or possibly not by accident, while distracted by a council meeting. He'd spent 2 years being careful with the information, waiting for the moment it was worth spending. This was the moment. The operative went out the window without another word, and Naruto lay back down on his bedroll and looked at the ceiling, and the wolf settled in his chest with the comfortable weight of something that had been held in readiness and no longer needed to be. Hiruzen Sarutobi received Danzo's formal written complaint at 8 the next morning. The complaint was precisely worded, legally airtight, and deeply furious in the specific way of a document written by someone who was maintaining formal language over a genuine emotional response. It accused Hiruzen of maintaining classified information about an active village asset, of failing to properly register the full capability profile of a Jinchuriki, and of allowing that Jinchuriki to operate with insufficient oversight during a competitive examination involving multiple foreign villages. Hiruzen read it 3 times. Then he set it down and looked out his office window at the village, and the morning was clear and the mountain faces were sharp in the early light, and his desk held the parallel weight of Danzo's complaint and a mission report from Kakashi that had arrived 2 days earlier and which he had read 4 times, and the 2 documents together said something about where things were going. He'd known this was coming. He'd been managing the timeline, buying space, constructing the conditions under which Naruto could grow into the full weight of what he was before the world demanded its accounting. He'd thought he had more time. He thought about a 6-year-old boy on his knees in a forest clearing, and a list of 12 capabilities written in careful hand, and the 12th item, I can feel when people are lying. He thought about what Naruto had written on Danzo's message. The Sigma file. He didn't know how Naruto knew about it. He suspected, with the fond exhaustion of someone who had been outwitted by the same person repeatedly, that the answer was the window he'd thought he'd latched. He drafted a response to Danzo's complaint that said, in 6 paragraphs of administrative language, I know. I've always known. And you will not touch him. He sent it through official channels, which meant Danzo would receive it formally and publicly, which meant the complaint was now a documented exchange, which meant Danzo couldn't act on his information without that action becoming visible against the documented background. It was protection by bureaucracy, which was not elegant, but it was fast and it was real. He called his secretary. Get me Kakashi Hitaki, he said. This afternoon. Unofficial. The preliminary rounds were held the same day. The Chunin in charge announced them with the specific regret of someone delivering bad news they hadn't invented, and the brackets went up on the board and Naruto read his name paired with Kiba Inuzuka and found that he had no particular feelings about this except the mild practical observation that Kiba's enhanced smell, while good, was going to operate in a very different register from his own. Kiba had feelings about it. He announced them to Akamaru with the performative confidence of someone who processed anxiety as volume. This is basically a gift, Kiba told the dog. Akamaru made a sound. Of course I can beat him. Look at him. Naruto, sitting 20 feet away on the observation deck railing with his feet dangling, raised one hand in a small wave. Kiba looked at him, then at Akamaru, then at him again. That's creepy, Kiba said. How long have you been, since you came in, Naruto said. The door. I wasn't, you were pretty loud, Naruto said pleasantly. Kiba's expression ran through several phases. Are you messing with me? No, Naruto said. He turned his hand over and looked at his palm, then at Kiba. I heard you. I wasn't trying to. Your voice carries. He paused. Akamaru smells nervous, by the way. Akamaru barked once, short and sharp, and looked at Kiba. He's not nervous, Kiba said. He is, Naruto said. A little. It's fine. New situation. New smells in a new building. Reasonable response. He looked at the dog with the direct, non-threatening quality of someone who communicated with animals not by performing friendliness but by having a biological register that animals found comprehensible. He'll be fine once the crowd noise settles. Akamaru looked at Naruto for a long moment. Then walked 3 steps toward him and sat down. Kiba stared at his dog. He started. He's fine, Naruto said. He just wanted someone to tell him. Kiba stood with his arms crossed and the expression of someone whose entire tactical assessment was being revised in real time and who was not enjoying the experience. Then he said, with the specific honesty of someone who had grown up around an Inuzuka clan that valued directness, "You're going to beat me, aren't you?" "Yes," Naruto said. Not unkindly. How badly? Naruto thought about it. Quickly, he said. Is that better or worse than badly? I don't know, Kiba said. Ask me after. The fight lasted 4 minutes, which was longer than it needed to be and shorter than anyone watching expected. Kiba was fast and instinct-driven and had the specific fearlessness of someone who'd been told all their life that being aggressive was a feature, not a flaw, and had embraced this with both hands. His coordination with Akamaru was genuine and fluid and in another matchup would have been devastating. The problem was that Naruto's smell didn't behave correctly. Kiba noticed it in the first 30 seconds, the slight hesitation, the moment where Akamaru's tracking faltered, the specific confusion of an animal whose nose had found something that wasn't in its experiential catalog. Naruto was throwing too many scent layers simultaneously, the wolf current producing an olfactory signature that overlapped with and complicated the human baseline in ways that the Inuzuka tracking method wasn't calibrated for. Naruto moved through the engagement with the economy of motion that was his baseline, nothing wasted, every step the exact necessary step, reading the geometry of Kiba's attacks 3 beats ahead and occupying the space where they weren't rather than blocking the space where they were. It was not the most dramatic fighting style. It was profoundly effective. The finishing movement was a redirected Kitsuga, Kiba's own rotation technique, Naruto using the spin's energy rather than trying to stop it, adding a precise lateral input that sent Kiba and Akamaru into the arena wall instead of into Naruto, and when the dust settled, both of them were on the ground, breathing hard, and Naruto was standing in the center of the arena with his hands in his pockets. The crowd was quiet for a moment. Then noise. Naruto looked up at the observation deck. Sasuke was watching with the full, focused attention he gave things he was studying, not jealousy, not resentment, something more like active learning, the expression of someone taking notes. Sakura was next to him, her hand over her mouth, eyes wide. Kakashi's eye was crinkled, which was his version of openly pleased. Kiba sat up against the arena wall and looked at Naruto across the space between them. Quickly, Naruto said. Yeah, Kiba said. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said something that Naruto hadn't expected from him. You're real, aren't you? Not a performance. No, Naruto said. Not a performance. Kiba nodded. Good, he said. I'd rather lose to something real. Naruto walked toward the exit and stopped and looked back. Your speed's excellent, he said. If you work on the scent suppression, you'll be significantly harder to read. Kiba's eyebrows went up. You're giving me tips. You're going to be strong, Naruto said. Might as well be strong faster. He left the arena floor and Kiba sat against the wall for a while longer thinking about that, and Akamaru climbed into his lap and they sat together in the settling dust. That evening, the examiner announced the month-long preparation period before the final round, and the building emptied in stages, teams to their lodgings, families to the exits, officials to their administrative follow-ups. Naruto was 3 steps from the door when a hand came down on his shoulder. Not aggressive. Not threatening. Firm and deliberate, the pressure of someone who wanted a word and had decided that the word was happening now regardless of preference. He turned. Danzo Shimura looked back at him with his one visible eye, and around them the crowd was thinning and the lighting was late afternoon orange, and there were 2 root operatives at peripheral distance pretending to be waiting for someone. Naruto Uzumaki, Danzo said. Danzo-san, Naruto said. You sent me a message, Danzo said. You sent me one first. Danzo looked at him with the specific quality of attention that Naruto had been cataloging since age 8, the inventory gaze, the assessment that treated a person as a collection of assets rather than a self, and this time it was different. This time the inventory was running against a catalog that had been revised. The 4 words had done their work. You know about the Sigma file, Danzo said. Some of it, Naruto said. Enough. What you know, Danzo said carefully, is the framing the Third Hokage put on those events. Which is not the complete picture. I know, Naruto said. There's never a complete picture. But the parts one know are enough to understand that the person in that file was handled very badly, and that the Third Hokage has spent the last 6 years making different choices, and that those different choices are why I'm standing here having this conversation instead of being a root asset or a corpse. Danzo's eye was steady. You're 12 years old. You really need new material, Naruto said. A pause. Something in Danzo's expression moved, not quite humor, but the functional cousin of it, the specific response of someone who has been caught in a repeated error and is reluctant to show they've noticed. What I want from you, Danzo said, is not what you think. Tell me what it is, then. Stability, Danzo said. Konoha has 2 significant vulnerabilities in the current geopolitical situation. The Jinchuriki and, the other thing. Together, those vulnerabilities are either catastrophic or unprecedented, depending on how they're managed. He paused. I manage vulnerabilities. By eliminating them, Naruto said. By incorporating them, Danzo said. Those sound different and mean the same thing, Naruto said. He held the man's gaze. You want me in root because an asset you control isn't a vulnerability. You've been thinking about this for 6 years. Maybe longer. And the Sigma file tells me that the last time you managed something like this, the management killed it. Danzo was quiet. I'm not going to be managed, Naruto said. Not by root, not by anyone. I'm going to be Hokage. That's the job I want and the job I'm going to have, and between here and there I'm going to get strong enough that the conversation we're having right now, he looked at the older man steadily, will seem very quaint. A long silence. You're very confident, Danzo said. Yes, Naruto said. Is there anything else? Danzo looked at him. The inventory gaze ran one more time, slow and complete, and at the end of it something in it changed. A closing of the assessment, the specific shift of someone who had reached a conclusion they hadn't planned on reaching. The Third Hokage, Danzo said, has made you aware of the risks your continued existence poses to this village. The Third Hokage, Naruto said, has made me aware that my existence is worth protecting. That's a different framing with different operational consequences. He stepped back. Good evening, Danzo-san. He walked out the door into the late afternoon, and the 2 root operatives watched him go, and Danzo stood in the emptying hall with the specific expression of a man who had done 40 years of intelligence work and had just been outplayed by a 12-year-old, and was deciding what to do with that. Kakashi found Naruto on the roof of the training hall an hour later. He sat down next to him without preamble, which Naruto appreciated about him. 2 months of Team 7 had built a specific communication economy between them. Kakashi didn't waste words and Naruto didn't perform casualness, and together they could cover a lot of ground without either of them pretending. You talked to Danzo, Kakashi said. He talked to me, Naruto said. I responded. The Hokage is, I know, Naruto said. I'll go see him tomorrow. Tonight he paused, I wanted to sit somewhere for a while. Kakashi looked at him. The evening was coming in fast, the sky moving from orange to purple, and the training hall roof gave a clear view of the village spread below, lights coming on in windows, smoke from kitchens, the sound of the village doing its evening things. The Sigma file, Kakashi said. Naruto looked at him. You know about it. I know there is one, Kakashi said carefully. I don't know its contents. It's about someone who had what I have, Naruto said. Before me. A long time ago. Danzo was involved in what happened to them. He paused. It didn't go well. Kakashi was quiet for a moment. What happened? They were managed, Naruto said. In the way Danzo manages things. Another silence. Kakashi looked out at the village. He's going to be a problem, Kakashi said. He already is one, Naruto said. But he's a predictable one, now. He wanted to understand what I was before he moved on me. The Sigma file reference tells him that I know his history with this particular thing, which means moving on me creates exposure for him. He pulled his knee up and rested his arm across it. He'll pull back. Plan differently. You're very calm about this, Kakashi said. I've been thinking about Danzo since I was 8, Naruto said. You've had 3 months. I've had 4 years. He paused. I'm calm because I've had time to be scared and come out the other side of it. Kakashi looked at him. The profile of a 12-year-old against the Konoha evening, voice even, the wolf warmth, a constant quiet emanation, 2 things in his chest that the world hadn't budgeted for. Naruto, he said. Yeah. The Hokage's protection, I know it's real, Naruto said. I know he's doing his best. I know the secret was made for my benefit. He was quiet for a moment. But I'm not 6 anymore. The protection has to change shape. He looked at Kakashi. I'm not hiding. Whatever's coming, the exam finals, Danzo, whatever Orochimaru is planning, I'm not hiding any of it. I'm going to stand there and be what I am and let people figure out what to do with that. Kakashi was quiet for a long time. The finals are in a month, he said. I know. There will be audience. Dignitaries. Feudal lords. Other village leadership. I know, Naruto said again. When they see what you can do, good, Naruto said simply. The word sat in the evening air with the particular weight of something that had been decided for a long time and was only now being said out loud. Good. Let them see. Kakashi looked at the village below, and thought about the smoothness of the file, and what was underneath the boards, and the specific shape of what was going to happen when the boards came up. He thought about it for a long time and found he didn't have a better answer than the one sitting next to him. Okay, he said. Okay. Naruto seemed slightly surprised by the ease of it, same as the roof conversation 2 months ago. You're right, Kakashi said. Same reason as before. He opened his book. Same answer tends to be right more than once. They sat on the roof while the village went to its evening, and the wolf ran warm laps in Naruto's chest, and the moon was rising, 12 days from full, and somewhere below them a 12-year-old in orange had just mapped his own future with the calm accuracy of someone who had been preparing for it since before he knew its shape. The village, spread below them in its 10,000 lights, did not know yet what was walking in it. In 1 month, in an arena filled with feudal lords and foreign dignitaries and jonin and civilians, it was going to find out. Chapter 6, The village finds out. The arena seated 4,000 people and it was full. Naruto could hear all of them. Not deliberately, he wasn't running the full depth this morning, the moon was 4 days away and the wolf was at its waxing weak amplitude, that particular heightened state where everything came in slightly louder than usual regardless of what he did with his attention. 4,000 heartbeats, 4,000 sets of lungs doing their morning work, the layered noise of it pressing against his awareness like a crowd pressed against a gate. He stood in the competitor's corridor beneath the arena floor with his hands loose at his sides and his eyes on the stone wall in front of him, and he breathed through it the way Hiruzen had taught him to breathe through the overwhelming inputs, not blocking, not resisting, but letting it flow past like water around a stone, taking what was relevant and releasing the rest. Relevant, Sasuke, 20 feet to his right, doing something that looked like meditation but was actually the specific internal process Sasuke used before anything that mattered to him, which was most things, regardless of what his face said about it. Relevant, Sakura, who was in the stands rather than the competitor's corridor because she'd been eliminated in the preliminaries and had come today with the particular fierce, focused energy of someone who was going to watch every second and extract every piece of information from it. Relevant, Kakashi, who was somewhere above. Naruto could pick his chakra signature out of 4,000 now, which was recent and which he'd been practicing, with the quality of attention that meant he was running the full professional assessment. Relevant, and much larger than anything else, Hiruzen, in the Kage's box with the weight of everything Naruto knew he was carrying, dressed formally, his chakra signature carrying the specific gravity of a man at the edge of a decision he'd been deferring for 6 years. Not relevant, but impossible to ignore, Danzo, who was in the administrative seats rather than the Kage's box, which was a deliberate positional statement, sitting with the contained patience of someone who had decided to watch events unfold rather than direct them and was still deciding whether that decision was correct. Also present, and this one Naruto had been tracking since it entered the arena 20 minutes ago, a chakra signature that was cold and large and amber, familiar from the Forest of Death, currently disguised but not well enough, because you couldn't disguise the quality of something that old and that hungry. Orochimaru was here. He added this to the operational picture he'd been building since before dawn and kept his breathing even and waited. The other competitors came and went in the corridor around him, Sao Nin who moved with the edged quality of people who had been told they were weapons and had accepted this as a complete self-description, a Rain Nin who was good and knew it, Gaara of the Sand, who stood 40 feet away against the far wall and existed in the specific silence of someone from whom all incidental human noise had been stripped, the silence of someone who had stopped believing in the possibility of comfort long ago. Naruto had been watching Gaara since the exam began. Not the way people usually watched Gaara, with the particular sidelong wariness of someone trying to assess a threat without making eye contact, but directly, the way Naruto watched most things that interested him. And Gaara, who noticed everything, had noticed this and had looked back, and their two gazes had met twice in the past 3 weeks without anything being said, and what Naruto had felt in both those moments was the specific resonance of recognition. Not sameness. Something more precise than sameness. He knew what Gaara was carrying. Not the details, the Shikaku specifics, the sand specifics, none of that. But the weight of it. The shape of the isolation that grew around a child who was a weapon before they were a person. He knew that shape from the inside. Gaara looked at him now from across the corridor. Naruto held the look for a moment, then nodded. Once, small. I see you. Not what they see. You. Gaara's expression didn't change. But something in his stillness shifted. The stillness after the nod was different from the stillness before it, the way water is different after you've touched it. Then the corridor gates opened and the morning light came through and the crowd noise hit like a physical thing and Naruto walked out into it. The arena was an open bowl of pale stone, the fighting floor circular and wide, the stands rising around it in tiers that were dense with people from every village and rank in the assembled roster. The Kage's box was elevated and draped in formal colors, Hiruzen in the center, the Sand Kage to his left, a figure in the Sand delegation that Naruto had been noting since it arrived because it didn't sit the way the rest of the delegation sat, the chakra underneath the disguise a cold amber he was not going to forget. He filed this and kept moving. His first match was against a Sao Nin named Dosu, who had made it through the preliminaries on the strength of a sound-based weapon that disrupted the inner ear and generated debilitating nausea and disorientation in anyone within its effective range. The weapon worked on the auditory system. Naruto's auditory system was not standard. He stood across the fighting floor from Dosu while the proctor finished the formalities, and he watched the Sao Nin assess him with the professional calm of someone who had a plan and confidence in the plan, and he thought about the most efficient geometry of this engagement. And the wolf was warm and available, and he was aware of the 4,000 people in the stands and the Kage's box and Danzo in the administrative seats with his careful patient gaze, and he decided, for the first time in his life, to stop doing the math about what people could see. Dosu activated the weapon on the first step of his approach, the bandaged arm raised, the sound wave deployed, a technique with good range and good impact that had put 2 other competitors on the floor in the preliminaries. Naruto walked through it. Not without registering it, the sound wave was real and it hit his auditory system with the designed impact, the inner ear receiving the full intended disruption. He processed this impact, integrated it, found the specific frequency of its effect and ran it through the wolf current's enhanced sensory processing in the way he'd been training for this exact type of sensory attack for 3 years, on Hiruzen's specific advice that enhanced senses created enhanced vulnerabilities. The nausea didn't come. The disorientation didn't come. He absorbed the frequency the way his body absorbed most impacts, taking it in, metabolizing it, continuing to move. He was inside Dosu's effective weapon range in 3 steps. The engagement lasted 9 seconds. He was precise about the outcome, enough force to end the match, not enough to cause lasting injury, and when Dosu was on the ground the crowd was very quiet for a moment and then very loud, and Naruto stood in the center of the fighting floor and looked up at the Kage's box. Hiruzen was looking back at him. They held the look for 2 seconds. There was an entire conversation in those 2 seconds, Naruto letting the old man know that this was the beginning of the day he'd been preparing them both for, Hiruzen receiving the information and sitting with it. Then Naruto walked to the competitor's exit and the crowd noise rebuilt around him. Sasuke's match came third, against a Rain Nin, and was over quickly with fire and precision and Sasuke's particular combination of overwhelming competence and performed indifference. The crowd loved it in the specific way they loved Sasuke, with the admiration that came from witnessing something they fully understood the value of. Naruto's second match, the semi-final, was against a grass Nin who was significantly better than Dosu, a sensor type with good speed and a water-based technique set that would have been difficult in an enclosed arena. The fight ran 4 minutes and confirmed several things for the crowd that the first fight had suggested. The speed was real. The physical capability was real. The sensory range was real enough that the grass Nin's technique to create a water mist blinding field had produced no apparent disadvantage. The lack of a signature jutsu, no named technique, no formal style, just the continuous efficient problem-solving of a body that moved like it had solved all the preparatory equations before the engagement started, was unusual enough that Naruto heard people in the stands trying to classify it and failing. He came off the fighting floor after the second match and found Kakashi waiting in the corridor. Kakashi was looking at him with the expression that had become familiar over 4 months, the full, focused, professional regard that meant the mask was present but the man behind it was paying complete attention. 2 more rounds, Kakashi said. Yes, Naruto said. The Sand team. Gaara, Naruto said. In the final, probably. If he gets there. He'll get there, Naruto said. He was quiet for a moment. His match is about to start. I want to watch. They stood at the corridor gate and watched Gaara's semi-final, and it was not a fight in any conventional sense, it was a demonstration of what happened when something that had been turned into a weapon met an opponent who was just a shinobi, and the gap between those 2 categories was absolute. The match ended in 40 seconds and the crowd went very quiet in a different way than they'd gone quiet for Naruto, not the impressed quiet of people watching capability, but the uncomfortable quiet of people watching something that reminded them what the shinobi world was built on underneath the competitions and the headbands and the ceremony. Gaara stood in the center of the arena floor after his match and his eyes went to the competitor's corridor and found Naruto without any apparent searching, the way you find something you've been tracking continuously. He's been alone his whole life, Naruto said quietly, to Kakashi, not taking his eyes off Gaara. More alone than me. I at least had, there were people. Irika. You. The old man. He paused. He's had nothing. He's been told the nothing is what he deserves. Naruto, I'm not going easy on him, Naruto said. That would be insulting. He'd know. He finally turned to look at Kakashi. But after, however it goes, I'm going to talk to him. Kakashi looked at him for a moment. You're 12 years old, he said, and there was something different in his voice than when other people said it, not a dismissal, but something almost like wonder, the specific kind that comes from watching someone be entirely, consistently themselves. I know, Naruto said. The final began at noon. The crowd had settled into the specific electricity of an event that had been building towards something they couldn't fully name, the sense of a day tipping toward its actual purpose. In the Kage's box, Hiruzen sat with the stillness of a man in the last few minutes before something irreversible, because he could feel it, the quality of the morning, the quality of his own chest, the same way you feel a storm in the air before the clouds arrive. Beside him, the Sand Kage, who was not the Sand Kage, shifted almost imperceptibly in his seat. Hiruzen had known since the procession that something was wrong. The chakra signature was Orochimaru's, barely dressed, the disguise good enough for the administrative distance but not good enough for someone who had known Orochimaru's chakra for 30 years. He'd been waiting, since the procession, for the moment it moved. Below, Naruto and Gaara walked onto the fighting floor from opposite sides. The crowd went quiet in a way that was different from the other matches. This quiet had a quality of held breath, the crowd's collective sense that the two people on the floor were operating in a register that the previous fights hadn't reached, and the crowd didn't have the vocabulary for it but the body knew. Naruto and Gaara stood 12 meters apart and looked at each other. Up close, with no intermediary distance, the resonance was stronger. Naruto felt it in his chest alongside the wolf's pre-full moon amplitude, two Jinchuriki in the same space, two enormous presences, and the specific quality of Gaara's that was different from Kurama's, wilder and closer to the surface, the Shikaku less contained, and underneath it the human being who had been told for 12 years that there was no human being, only the sand and the killing. Gaara of the sand, Naruto said. Gaara looked at him. His eyes were the color of sea glass and carried the specific quality of someone who had stopped expecting conversations to contain anything but threat assessment. You're the first person in the exam who looked at me directly, Gaara said. His voice was even, precise, like he was testing the mechanics of speech. I know, Naruto said. How was it? A pause. Confusing, Gaara said. Yeah, Naruto said. People looking at you like you're a person instead of a problem is confusing at first. He paused. Does it feel bad? The sea glass eyes tracked him, not the threat assessment, something else. Something that had been turned off for so long it didn't have a name for itself being turned on. No, Gaara said, quietly. Then remember that, Naruto said. When this is over. Gaara looked at him for one more second. Fight me seriously, Gaara said. It was a request, not a challenge. I'm going to, Naruto said. The proctor stepped back and the match began. What happened in the next 12 minutes was something the crowd would describe afterward in ways that varied entirely depending on what they'd been looking at. The people watching the sand watched something unprecedented, Gaara using the full scope of his ability, the sand moving with the speed and intelligence of an extension of conscious will, massive and fast and three-dimensional. The people watching Naruto watched something that had no good frame of reference, a 12-year-old moving through sand that should have been unavoidable, the wolf current visibly present now in the quality of his speed, the air around him carrying the warmth of it, and the senses operating at a level that read the sand's trajectories before they arrived. No one was comfortable. The fight was not about domination. Naruto understood this within the first exchange. This was Gaara using the full capacity of what he had for the first time against something that could actually receive it, the specific relief of being met at your actual level after years of nothing but the gap between yourself and everyone around you. He was not trying to win in the way people usually tried to win. He was trying to exist at full scale and see what happened. Naruto gave him that. He moved through the sand with full wolf depth running, not the transformation, but everything beneath it, the senses and speed and structural enhancement at maximum, and met every technique with the problem-solving efficiency of someone who had been training for 12-year-old combat since he was 6. The sand hit him twice, glancing contacts, and both times he was already moving with the impact rather than against it. At the 9-minute mark, Naruto had an opening. He looked at it, the geometry clear, Gaara's sand pulled wide on the right side, the angle to close the distance and end the match available, and he took 2 steps toward it and stopped. Not because he couldn't. Because of something he saw in Gaara's face. The Shikaku was pressing at the surface. He could see it, the sand rising without direction, the eyes going less focused, the human face behind the Jinchuriki face getting thinner. The fight had pushed Gaara to the edge of the thing he'd been told he was, the edge where the weapon swallowed the person. Naruto stepped back instead of forward. "Hey," he said. Loud enough to cut through the sand noise. "Stay with me." Gaara's eyes focused. The sand pulled back slightly. "Don't go there," Naruto said. "You don't have to. You're winning this on your own, you don't need him." A long, suspended moment. The arena was absolutely silent, 4,000 people not breathing, the Kage's box frozen, the crowd not understanding what they were watching but knowing it was something. The sand settled. Gaara was breathing hard, and his eyes were his own, and he looked at Naruto across the fighting floor with an expression that was the most unguarded thing Naruto had seen on his face. "Why?" Gaara said. "Because you're a person," Naruto said. "Not a weapon. And people deserve to win as themselves." 3 seconds of silence. Then Gaara sat down on the arena floor. Not a collapse, a choice. He sat cross-legged in the center of the arena and looked at his hands, and the sand settled around him in the specific way of something that had been released. The proctor looked between them. "I yield," Gaara said. The crowd erupted. Not the clean noise of a crowd watching a victory, something more complicated, more uncertain, the noise of 4,000 people experiencing something they didn't have a category for and were going to be thinking about for a long time. Naruto walked to where Gaara was sitting and sat down across from him, right there on the arena floor, cross-legged, while the crowd noise built above them. "When you go back," Naruto said quietly, "it won't be the same. You know that, right?" "I know," Gaara said. He was looking at his hands. "I've known for a while that something had to change. I didn't know what change looked like." "It looks like whatever you make it," Naruto said. Gaara looked up at him. "You're not going to tell me it gets easier." "I don't know if it gets easier," Naruto said honestly. "It gets different. The people around you, the right ones, start to see you differently. And then you start seeing yourself differently. And then the weight shifts." He paused. "It takes time." "How much time?" "I'll tell you when I get there," Naruto said. Gaara almost smiled. The specific face of someone who doesn't know how to use the expression but their body has found it anyway, the way a long-unused door opens stiffly but opens. They sat on the arena floor for another moment while the proctor gestured them toward the exits and the crowd kept making its complicated noise, and then they stood and walked to opposite corridors, and Naruto felt Kurama stir in the deep part of his chest, the fox's attention drawn by the proximity of the Shikaku, and something in the quality of that attention that was not quite what Kurama would have called it out loud but was unmistakably recognition, one enormous sealed thing acknowledging another. "That one's going to be trouble," Kurama said. "The good kind," Naruto said under his breath. "Is there a good kind?" "There is," Naruto said. "I'll show you eventually." He was 3 steps into the competitor's corridor when it started. He felt it before the sound reached the crowd, the chakra in the Kage's box, which had been the amber cold of Orochimaru's barely disguised signature since morning, detonated. The suppression collapsed. A sounding technique activated somewhere in the administrative tier. And then the crowd noise changed from the complicated noise of people processing the fight to the specific noise of 4,000 people registering that something was very wrong. Naruto was already running. He hit the corridor's upper exit and came out on the arena's outer walkway at full speed, moving toward the Kage's box, and the scene came together fast, Orochimaru at the box's entrance, the disguise entirely shed, his actual presence filling the space with that cold amber hunger, and the Sand Kage slumped in his seat, and Hiruzen standing in front of Orochimaru with his robes displaced and a kunai in his hand, not defensive, ready, and his face carrying the expression of a man who had known this was a possibility and had decided, when it became real, that he was not going to retreat from it. Around the arena, the crowd was beginning to understand. The reaction spread in waves, nearest to the Kage's box first, then outward, the specific sound of mass alarm building like weather. Naruto hit the box's outer wall and came over it. Orochimaru turned at the sound of his arrival. The amber eyes found him with the specific quality of someone encountering a variable that had been noted but not fully integrated. The Jinchuriki, Orochimaru said. I didn't expect you to arrive first. I was close, Naruto said. He put himself between Orochimaru and Hiruzen without making a performance of it, just occupied the space, stood in it, the wolf fully awake and running at the pre-transformation amplitude that the approaching full moon had been building toward all week. Naruto, Hiruzen said from behind him. Move aside. No, Naruto said. This isn't your fight, you're my responsibility, Naruto said. He kept his eyes on Orochimaru. You said you'd always come yourself. That goes both ways. A pause. Then Hiruzen, quietly, you have a talent for making old men feel things. I know, Naruto said. Stand back, old man. Orochimaru was watching this exchange with the specific quality of interest he'd shown in the Forest of Death, the genuine variety, the kind that coexisted with intention rather than replacing it. You've had a productive morning, he said to Naruto. It's been good, Naruto agreed. The Sand Boy. Gaara, Naruto said. You made him yield, Orochimaru said, and there was something in the word made that was not the right word and they both knew it. Or rather, you made him choose. Which is considerably more interesting. He tilted his head slightly. That's the wolf, isn't it? Not the nine tails. The other thing. The crowd noise was building. Around the arena, Sound and Sand shinobi who had been seated through the exam audience were beginning to move, the invasion pattern becoming visible as its trigger point completed. Naruto felt the shape of what was happening, not just the Kage's box, the whole arena, the whole day, and the wolf's cold spatial processing laid it out in geometry. You're not going to get what you came for, Naruto said to Orochimaru. You know that. I came for several things, Orochimaru said. The Hokage. The village. Sasuke, eventually. Naruto held his gaze. None of those are happening today. The invasion is already beginning, Orochimaru said. What are you going to do? You're 12 years old and there's one of you. There's never just one of me, Naruto said. And then he did something he'd never done in front of an audience before. He made a single hand seal, a cross, and the chakra output was enormous, the Nine Tails reserves opened wide, and the shadow clones arrived like a detonation, not 3, not 5, not the academy standard of 60 of them, filling the Kage's box and the outer walkway and the arena approaches. 60 copies of Naruto in orange and blue with the wolf warmth running through all of them because the original had it and the shadow clones carried it forward, and the specific presence of 60. Pre-full moon wolf-enhanced Jinchuriki hitting the air all at once produced something that even Orochimaru took a step back from. The arena went completely silent for one full second. Then the clones moved, 30 into the arena's approaches to intercept the Sound and Sand shinobi beginning their invasion pattern, 20 spreading through the crowd tiers to cover civilian evacuation, 10 staying in the Kage's box area forming a perimeter. Naruto stood in front of Orochimaru with the original's full weight, both things in his chest fully awake, the Nine Tails chakra still channeling from the clone jutsu, the wolf's presence turned up by the moon's pull and the adrenaline of the moment and the specific clarity that came when everything he was became necessary simultaneously. Orochimaru looked at the clones and then at Naruto and his amber eyes were entirely alive with the genuine assessment. That, he said quietly, is not in any file. No, Naruto said. It's not. The wolf energy in the clones, distributes, Naruto said. Yes. That shouldn't be possible, Orochimaru said. Shadow clones carry chakra. The wolf current isn't chakra. No, Naruto said. But it's mine. And where I go, it goes. Orochimaru was still for a long moment. Behind Naruto, Hiruzen had moved to address the Sand Kage situation, and around the arena the clones were doing their work. He could feel them, the distributed awareness of 60 copies running in parallel, the tactical picture building in real time, and the invasion pattern was disrupted, the element of surprise gone, the arena's Jonin core now activating in response to the visible crisis. This was not what Orochimaru had planned for. Another time, Orochimaru said. I gave you my answer on that in a forest 3 weeks ago, Naruto said. It hasn't changed. Orochimaru looked at him one more time, the long, complete, genuinely interested assessment of someone filing something significant, and then he was gone, the same dissolving vanish from the forest of death, here and then not, and Naruto stood in the space he'd occupied and breathed and let the fight tension find its outlet in the continued work of the clones. Below in the arena, the invasion was collapsing. Not because of the clones alone, the Konoha Jonin were moving with full operational efficiency, and the crowd evacuation was well underway, but the clones had bought the critical opening minute, the minute of disruption that made everything after it manageable rather than catastrophic. Naruto watched from the Kage's box walkway, receiving the distributed awareness of 60 simultaneous tactical situations, managing it with the calm lateral thinking that was half training and half the wolf's natural gift for spatial complexity. He felt Kakashi arrive behind him before he heard him, the familiar chakra signature, and with it Sasuke's sharper one, and Sakura's. Useful morning, Kakashi said. The clones are handling the arena approaches, Naruto said. Southeast corridor has 3 Sannin who are better than the others, I need someone there. Already moving, Kakashi said. He was using the voice he used in active operations, clean, efficient, no interpersonal register. The Sand team. Gaara's not part of this, Naruto said immediately. He didn't know. The strategy originated above his level. You're sure? Yes. He'd felt it in Gaara's chakra during their fight, no foreknowledge, no preparation for the shift to invasion. The sea glass eyes on the arena floor had held nothing but presence. Leave him alone. A beat. Confirmed, Kakashi said. Sasuke came up beside Naruto and looked at the arena below, the clones moving through it, the orange multiplied against the pale stone, the warm wolf presence distributed across 60 points of action. You've been holding back, Sasuke said. Not an accusation. A statement of discovered fact. No, Naruto said. I've been managing what was visible. There's a difference. You just deployed 60 clones with, whatever that is in them. Yes. In front of 4,000 people. Yes, Naruto said. On purpose. Sasuke was quiet for a moment. Then, with the specific Sasuke cadence of someone arriving at a conclusion they'd been building toward for months, this is it, isn't it? This is what you were waiting to do. Not waiting, Naruto said. Preparing. He looked out at the arena. There's a difference between those two. The invasion ended in 40 minutes. Not cleanly, there was nothing clean about the specific kind of chaos that 40 trained shinobi seeded through a civilian crowd could generate, but completely, the sound and sand force unable to maintain operational coherence once the tactical picture turned against them, which it did in the first minutes and continued to do until the last pocket of resistance was contained in the arena's north tunnel. Naruto recalled the last of the clones as the final all-clear went through the Jonin communication chain, receiving the dispersed memory of 60 simultaneous experiences in the specific way of shadow clone recall, a rush of parallel information, 60 minutes of action arriving in 1 second of processing. He sat down on the Kage's box railing and let it integrate and said nothing for about 30 seconds while 4 months of training in parallel memory processing did its work. Hiruzen sat down beside him. The old man was tired, genuinely tired, the specific tiredness of someone who had been holding a weight for a long time and had just moved it but not put it down. His chakra signature had the quality of something running on decision rather than reserve. The clones, he said. Yes, Naruto said. The wolf current in the clones. Yes. Hiruzen was quiet for a moment. Below them, the arena was in the organized motion of aftermath, Jonin moving the contained sound neem, medics attending to the civilians who hadn't evacuated fast enough, Chunin doing the systematic security sweep of the tiers. 4,000 people saw that, Hiruzen said. Yes, Naruto said. And the Jonin. And the foreign delegations. And Danzo. He looked at the old man. And Orochimaru, who didn't know the full scope and does now. Hiruzen absorbed this. It's done, Naruto said. Not as a challenge. As a fact reported accurately. The containment is done. I know that's not how you wanted it to end. No, Hiruzen said quietly. But I knew it would end. When did you know? The old man looked at his hands. The list, he said. The 12 items. The last one. He paused. A child who remembers being afraid so he can understand other people's fear does not stay hidden forever. He becomes Hokage. Naruto looked at him. The afternoon was moving toward evening and the arena was filling with the specific quality of aftermath, people coming back to themselves, assessing, beginning to process, and in the Kage's box it was just the two of them for this moment, and the wolf sat warm and steady in Naruto's chest. The village is going to have questions, Naruto said. Yes. Are you ready to answer them? Hiruzen looked at him steadily. Are you? I've been ready for years, Naruto said simply. The council convened 2 hours later. It was not an official council session, too fast, too raw, the administrative machinery not yet caught up with the day's events. It was closer to the specific gathering that happened when the people who made decisions needed to be in the same room with the same information before the decisions started making themselves. Naruto attended. He attended because Hiruzen had asked him to, not requested, not suggested, but looked at him with the eyes of someone who had made a decision about how things were going to be done differently from now on and asked him directly, as an equal participant rather than a subject. The council room seated 12 and held 20 today, Jonin commanders, clan heads, administrative leads, and Danzo, who had positioned himself at the far end of the table with the careful neutrality of someone who was reserving his hand. Naruto sat beside Hiruzen. The room had the specific quality of people trying to process a large amount of new information in a compressed time window, and several of the faces, Hamura, Koharu, 2 of the clan heads, had the particular tight expression of people who had decided on their response to the information before they had all of it and were finding that the response didn't fit what they were actually looking at. Hiruzen spoke first, with the measured cadence of someone who had written this speech in his head 6 years ago and was now delivering it. He told them about the wolf bloodline. Not everything, not the Sigma file, not Danzo's history with it, those were conversations with different audiences, but the relevant facts, the pact bloodline activated at age 6, the secondary nature of it relative to the Jinchuriki status, the 6 years of supervised development, the full current capability profile. The room was quiet during this with the specific quality of people receiving information that was fundamentally reorganizing their model of a situation they thought they understood. Hamura spoke first. You've been hiding a second biological anomaly in an already classified asset for 6 years. Yes, Hiruzen said. Without council notification. Correct. The legal exposure is mine, Hiruzen said. Entirely. The decision was mine. The responsibility is mine. Hamura looked like he had more to say about this. Koharu put a hand on his arm, which was how their particular partnership managed its disagreements in public spaces. One of the clan heads, Inoichi Yamanaka, who had the face of someone who had spent a career reading the emotional content of rooms and was currently doing it at capacity, said, "The boy. Naruto." He looked at Naruto directly. How much of this was your decision? Some of it, Naruto said. The management of what was visible, that was mine. I decided, a long time ago, what I would show and what I wouldn't. The Hokage's secrecy was his. My performance in the exam today was mine. Today was deliberate, Inoichi said. Yes, Naruto said. You chose today specifically. Orochimaru's invasion made today the relevant day, Naruto said. I didn't choose the timing. But when it happened, I chose my response. Yes. Inoichi sat back. His expression was doing something complicated and resolving towards something Naruto read as respect, which was not what he'd expected from that quarter. Danzo spoke from the end of the table. The room went a different quality of quiet, the quiet of a space acknowledging a weight at its periphery. The Sigma file, Danzo said, which the boy claims knowledge of, has been reviewed, Hiruzen said. And is relevant to this conversation in ways I'm prepared to discuss in a more limited session. This is not that session. Danzo looked at Naruto. Naruto looked back. The capabilities demonstrated today, Danzo said, represent a village asset of significant strategic value. I'm not an asset, Naruto said. Naruto, Hiruzen started. I'm a person, Naruto said, keeping his voice even. I'm a candidate for Hokage. I'm a member of Team 7. I'm a 12-year-old who carries two things in his body that are not his fault and not his limitation. I am not an asset. He looked at Danzo. The distinction matters, and I'll keep making it until it stops needing to be made. The room was absolutely quiet. Danzo looked at him with his one visible eye and the calculation that lived permanently behind it. Then he looked at Hiruzen, and something passed between them, the long, loaded communication of two people who had been in the same rooms for 40 years and understood each other's position without requiring words. The boy has a point, Danzo said. Nobody in the room had expected this. The surprise was visible on approximately 8 of the 12 faces, and the remaining 4 were good enough at their jobs to hide it. People, Danzo said, who understand that they are not assets, and who have the capability profile demonstrated today, are more strategically valuable than assets. He paused. It is a more complicated relationship. But a more durable one. He looked at Naruto one more time. The Sigma file concerns someone who did not understand the distinction, he said. To his cost and mine. Naruto held the look and said nothing. This was the closest Danzo was going to come, in this room, to saying what Naruto suspected the file contained, the person, the mismanagement, the cost that had been paid by someone who hadn't been given the tools to resist. Then we agree, Naruto said. On this specific point, Danzo said. Yes. Hiruzen was looking between them with the expression of a man watching something resolve that he had privately been uncertain would resolve. The crowd had not gone home. This was the thing nobody had fully anticipated, that after the invasion, after the security sweeps, after the arena had been cleared and the all-clear had been given, a significant portion of the 4,000 people who had been at the Chunin exam finals would not disperse to their homes and their evening meals and their processing of the day in private. They were outside. Gathered in the arena's public approach, the broad stone concourse that opened toward the village's main road, in the specific gathering of people who had witnessed something and needed to be around other people who had witnessed the same thing. Naruto came out the main competitor's exit with Kakashi on his left and Sasuke on his right and Sakura a step behind, and the crowd saw him. The noise wasn't what he expected. It wasn't the noise of the village he knew, the one that locked shop doors on anniversaries and looked at the ground and pulled coats tighter. It wasn't the frightened quiet or the hostile quiet or the deliberate looking away that had been the texture of his first 6 years in this place. It was something else. Louder and less resolved, the noise of people who were still working out what they thought about something, which was not the same as having decided against it. He stopped on the concourse steps. The crowd was looking at him, all of them, hundreds, the ones who'd stayed, and the looking had the quality of something that was not yet a decision but was not the old thing either. The thing he'd been seen as, the problem, the danger, the thing to look away from, had been disrupted by 60 minutes of a 12-year-old in orange doing something unprecedented in their arena, and disruption was not the same as acceptance, but it was not the same as before. He stood on the steps and let them look. Not performing. Not deflecting. Standing there the way he'd stood in front of Orochimaru, occupying the space, being exactly what he was, letting the being exactly what he was be the entirety of his presentation. He heard the first voice before he saw the face, an older woman, civilian clothes, gray-haired, standing 20 feet into the crowd. "The bridge," she said. "In the land of waves." He looked at her. "Yes. The Great Naruto Bridge." She had the voice of someone reporting a thing she'd verified. "My nephew is a merchant. He uses it." She paused. "He said a 12-year-old from Konoha protected their builder and kept his crew alive." "We all did," Naruto said. "Team 7. He said specifically," she continued, "that the 12-year-old went into the water on foot and fought without hesitation and then gave back the Hokage's robe with a bow." Behind him Kakashi made the sound that wasn't a laugh and wasn't not one. "He was slightly cold," Naruto said. "The robe was returned eventually." The woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something that he was not prepared for, not because it was extraordinary but because it was small, because it was the specific small thing that he had needed for 12 years and not received, the thing so ordinary that its absence had been the shape of most of his life. "Thank you," she said. The words hit him somewhere between the wolf's warmth and Kurama's vast contained heat, in the specifically human place where neither of those things lived, and he stood on the steps and received them and didn't say it was nothing because it was not nothing, because it was his whole life's work arriving at a specific moment with a specific weight. "You're welcome," he said. More voices then, not many, not the whole crowd, not the resolution of 12 years of collective institutional fear in one afternoon. He understood enough to know that was not how that worked. But more voices. People who had been in the arena and had watched and were working out what they'd seen in the presence of other people who'd seen the same thing, and the working out was loud and unresolved and real. A boy, 9 years old, sitting on a wall at the crowd's edge, was staring at Naruto with the wide specific attention of a child cataloging a person for future reference. Naruto looked at him. "Can I ask you something?" the boy said. "Yeah," Naruto said. "What's it like?" the boy said. "Having all that. The wolf thing. The 9 tails. All of it." Naruto thought about how to answer this honestly. "Heavy sometimes," he said. "But it's mine. Both of them are mine. They're not separate from me, they're part of what I am, and what I am is what's going to be Hokage." He looked at the boy. "Being exactly what you are, completely, without editing any of it out, that's the whole job. Not just the Hokage job. Any job." The boy stared at him and then looked at the friend beside him on the wall and said something Naruto didn't catch, and the friend looked at Naruto with the same wide-open cataloging stare. Sasuke came up beside him. "We should probably move," Sasuke said quietly. "Yeah," Naruto said. "He didn't move yet." "Naruto. I know." He looked at the crowd, the hundreds of people in the concourse still processing the day, still making the noise of something unresolved and alive. "I just want one more second." Sasuke was quiet. Then, in the specific voice of someone who has decided to put something down after carrying it for a long time, "You were right." Naruto looked at him. "About what specifically?" "At the training field. 3 weeks after graduation." He wasn't looking at Naruto, looking at the crowd. "I wanted a rival. I was angry about it then." A pause. "I'm not angry about it now." Naruto let the second pass. "I know," he said. "You always know," Sasuke said, which was an irritated observation that was also not irritated at all, and they both knew it. "It's the ears," Naruto said. Sasuke made the specific sound of someone who finds something funny and is refusing to let it onto their face. Then he turned and went down the steps toward the street, and Sakura followed, and Kakashi paused beside Naruto with his book tucked away for once, both hands free, and looked at the crowd with him. "The village is going to need time," Kakashi said. "I know," Naruto said. "The council is going to be difficult." "I know." Danzo is going to, I know, Naruto said. He turned to look at Kakashi. I've known all of it for a long time. That's not the part that's hard. What's the hard part? Kakashi asked. Naruto looked at the crowd, at the hundreds of unresolved people with their questions and their slowly revising perceptions, at the boy on the wall with his wide-open eyes, at the woman who'd said thank you and meant it. Learning that it's okay, he said, that the hard part isn't mine to fix. That some of it just has to be waited out. He paused. I spent 12 years trying to fix things I couldn't fix. Being exactly small enough that people would eventually stop being afraid. It never worked. He looked at Kakashi. Turns out you can't manage your way out of other people's fear. You just have to be real, loudly and continuously, and let people decide. Kakashi looked at him for a long moment. When did you figure that out? Today, Naruto said. Mostly. Some of it this morning. Some of it on the fighting floor. Some of it in the Kage's box, Kakashi suggested. Some of it in the Kage's box, Naruto agreed. He went down the steps. The crowd parted for him without backing away from him, which was different, specifically and significantly different, from the way they usually moved when he walked through them, and he felt the difference with the wolf's senses and the specifically human part of himself that had been waiting for it, and he walked through the late afternoon toward Ichiraku's because it had been a long day and he was hungry and some things didn't change, and behind him the village stood in the concourse. Processing the afternoon, and the moon was 4 days from full, and the wolf walked with him through the long light, and everything was different and everything was beginning. He passed the vegetable stand. The old man, the one who had gone inside and locked his door, just for Naruto, just for a small boy walking by, was sitting outside on his step in the evening air. He looked up when Naruto passed. He didn't lock his door. He didn't say anything. He just looked, and didn't look away, and that, the specific small ordinary thing of being looked at and not having someone look away, hit Naruto with a weight out of proportion to its size because it was not out of proportion to its history. He nodded at the old man. The old man nodded back. Naruto kept walking, and the moon was coming, and the wolf was warm, and somewhere ahead Ichiraku's warm light was spilling out onto the street, and he could hear Tucci already moving in the kitchen, and he was 12 years old and 2 things the world was still learning the vocabulary for, and he was exactly, entirely, irreducibly himself. The village would catch up. He was going to give it time.